Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's virtual event. It's time to realize the promise of automation. I'm Teresa Resick, Vice President of Market Intelligence here at AIIM, and AIIM is your host and producer of this event. And my co-host today is David Jeunesse of IBM. And IBM is the underwriter of today's virtual event, and we thank them for their support. And thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. And as we get started here, just wanted to share a few tips for participating in today's festivities. By joining live, you can resize the windows you have in front of you. You'll see, obviously, there's the webcam window and the slide window, and both are going to be live as we go through the different presentations today. The icons, there are a few extra icons across the bottom of your screen. I encourage you right now to go down and open up the group chat so that you can message with each other, but also with us. And we're going to be using group chat throughout the day. A few of the presenters are going to be using that. So please open that up. And right now, just type in where you're listening from to just to say hello to everyone. I encourage you to download the resources we have for you. There's a number of really cool things that we have listed over there. It's to the right of the slide area. And in the top of that are the agenda and the PDF of the presentations. So I encourage you to click onto that. That'll open in a new browser tab, download those, and you can follow along today. Also encourage you to ask questions of the speakers as we go along. Use the Q&A feature for that. And we will be taking questions with each presenter, and we'll do our best to take as many of your questions as we can. Time's going to be tight on here. We have a packed agenda, so get those questions in. And if we're not able to get to them with each presenter, certainly folks will get back with you after the event to answer those questions. If you do need to step out, I invite you to take the survey, and that's in the icons across the bottom. I truly value your feedback and appreciate hearing your opinion of how we did today. We are recording things, and we'll be sending a link for you to catch the replay so you can catch everything again. Just wanted to let you know that this is the lineup of the AIIM hosts who are going to be here with us today. I will be introducing Kevin and Peggy as they join us at their points in our set of presenters that we have. But just wanted to introduce that we do have Kevin Crane, Peggy Winton, and myself, Teresa Resick, here with you today. And while you're at your keyboards, a group chat saying hello, we're going to open things up with a little poll. So I'm going to ask the poll question before I introduce our MC today. So come up to the keyboards right now and answer this poll question. If automation success at your organization is a popular song, what's the title? Is it Court and Disaster by Neil Diamond? Because it's not going well. On a Slow Boat to China by John Prine? Going slowly. Taking Care of Business, Bachman Turner Overdrive. Or is it You're Walking on Sunshine with Katrina and the Waves, that you're winning? So come back and check on this poll question right here and give us an answer for that. And I'm going to introduce our MC, David Jeunesse, while you're sitting here taking this poll question. And David is a writer and a public speaker who specializes in communicating the benefits of new technologies to business decision makers. And at IBM, he develops the messaging strategy, writes executive speeches and videos, and produces IBM's live events. David was instrumental in bringing the lineup of speakers we have with us today. Thankful for that. So it's only fitting that he gets to take things from here. So with that, there's a little David enjoying summer libations there as our MC today. And David, let's take a look at these poll results here that we're seeing. And what do you think of this?
Well, I'm not surprised to see that it's going slow, but it is moving, and that does certainly jibe with a lot of what we're hearing, and that's really a lot of what's driving what we're here to do today, is to help speed that boat to China and move towards realizing the promise of automation. Thank you so much, Teresa. As you said, we've got a lot to do. I'm going to take one more minute and introduce our concept today, and that really begins with the concept of a promise, which is an agreement that creates a bond of trust between human beings, but it's also at the essence of all business transactions. And certainly a lot of promises have been made about automation, that it'll help save money, that it'll help make people more productive, that it'll give people time to do more interesting things for the company. But as you talk to any expert automation practitioner, they will tell you that it's not that simple. Well, we have gathered together a number of automation practitioners to dig into those tips and tricks and techniques that will help you realize the promise of automation. And as you'll see here, we'll kick off with Kevin Crane and the AIM keynote. We have lined up right after that Auto Owners Insurance with a great experience they're having and how they reached success. Colin Budd from the Design Thinking team will join us and share with us how large customers from IBM plan and get their automation act together. Then we'll hear from Harpreet Voira from Kemper Insurance, and he'll share with us their move to the cloud and all that was learned doing that. And we'll close out the morning with Mike Prentice, who is a longtime friend, an AIM CIP workshop leader, and will share with us how to do customer journey mapping. Now, what's really fun is the blue bars are going to show us a little bit of something different here. And it is my pleasure now to see if Stella and Ian are coming in here on the line from Santa Rosa, California. And then I will introduce them. Stella, are you there?
I'm here.
Fantastic.
Hi. Good morning.
Well, a year ago, we did a special event out in Napa Valley, and Stella and Ian joined us on stage, and we had a lot of fun. And we can't get together these days in person, but thanks to the miracle of this technology, we can ask Stella and Ian to join us and sing some songs about promises kept and promises broken. So Stella and Ian, why don't you take it away and start our event?
All right. The buzzard looked the monkey right in the neck. The monkey thought that everything was on the square. The buzzard tried to throw the monkey off his back, but the monkey grabbed his neck and said, "Hey, listen, Dad, straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top. What's the use in diving? Ain't no use in diving. Straighten up and fly right. Cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top." The buzzard told the monkey, "You are choking me. Release your hold and I will set you free." The monkey looked the buzzard right dead in the eye and said, "Your story is touching, but it sounds just like a lie. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top." Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and stay right. Straighten up and fly right. Cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top. Fly right.
Nice. Love that ending note. That is so sweet. Thank you so much, Stella and Ian. We are going to be seeing you over and over as the day unfolds. I didn't show you the afternoon. We're going to be dealing with artificial intelligence and RPA and all kinds of cool topics. And you see in blue, Stella and Ian will be with us. We'll close out because it is 2020. We need to laugh. We're going to have with us Christian Finnegan. He's been on the Tonight Show, the Late Late Show. He's on the Chappelle Show. Really going to be a nice way to close out. So, boy, do we have ourselves a wonderful day ahead of us. And to get us started, let's hear from Kevin Crane and see if we can bring him into the virtual stage. Kevin.
Hello, David. Hello, David.
Yes, I love it. So, quickly, because we're staying to time here, he is the #1 ECM influencer on social media. He's a content strategist for AIM and hosts many of the AIM online events. I'm sure you know of him. And he produces the AIM podcast. His Everyday MBA podcast has won awards, and his book, Designing a Document Strategy, has sold in more than 30 countries. And it is my great pleasure to welcome Kevin, who's also a guitarist and singer. Kevin Crane, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, David. It's really my pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of the event. It promises to be really informative and super fun. And speaking of promises, let's get to it. It's time to realize the promise of process automation. It's no secret that companies of all sizes and from all industries all over the world are facing a significant disruption due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the effects on the workforce, between workers transitioning to working from home and company and consumer budgets becoming constrained as a result of the economic impact. It's a scary time. Let's just get that straight. But it's also a time of great opportunity. And in my view, it's never been a better time to digitally transform our processes and our workflow, our departments. And in fact, process automation could indeed be the answer to business survival these days, as we are facing this disruption. A silver lining, if you will, a silver lining, not only for survival, but what I like to call surthrival, right? Surthrival, not only surviving these disruptive times, keeping my business working, but using that opportunity as a lever to thrive and build competitive advantage. That's what I'm about today. That's the opportunity that I feel that we have in front of us. And today, every employee counts. I speak with CEOs and executive leaders all the time on my podcasts, and they always tell me that they are rethinking their workflow, their business models, and their staffing, and still deciding how they're going to respond to this whole idea of, and they're creating new viewpoints for how they approach their workflow. And so it's time to make every employee count. It's time to take the robot out of the human and have them add more value to the things that they do. And to do that, process automation gives us that opportunity. But in order to capture that opportunity, we have to take advantage of the change that's afoot today, the convergence of change, the convergence of developments and innovations and technologies that are now available, and the need to change, the opportunity that is afoot. And one way to do that is by using process automation to build competitive advantage and improve the performance of the organization. But to do that will take breaking from our past failures. There remains a troubling pattern of process automation projects failing to reach the desired goals, or even worse, failing to launch at all. According to one study from Ernst & Young, failure rates for process automation projects are somewhere between 30 and 50%. But Ernst & Young discovered something very interesting. The failures are not because of the technology. There are plenty of technology implementations. The failure comes from a lack of results, a lack of really moving the needle in terms of organizational performance, in terms of digital transformation. According to Ernst & Young, the lack of results are a result of not having a big picture view of the effort, of what the outcome could be or should be or needs to be after the process has been automated. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can find that Ernst & Young report at ernstandyoung.com or ey.com. It's called Get Ready for Robots, Why Planning Makes the Difference Between Success and Disappointment. And so I suggest that if you're interested, that you look that up from Ernst & Young. So how do we establish this clear vision, this big picture that is needed to capture the promise of process automation? Well, our own AIM research helps point the way. Our respondents tell us that they need a clear sense of direction, a more detailed understanding of the process overall and for everyone involved. Indeed, in our most recent industry watch report on process automation, 50% of our respondents say that they struggle to identify the right technology for process automation. 46% say they struggle to understand the benefits of process automation. And it's this lack of understanding, this lack of vision that inhibits our ability to be innovative and our ability to build a competitive advantage. Here are some of the response stats. 20% say they need a more clear strategy and priorities. 17% say they need more clear ownership and guidance. 14% say they need more clear ROI. And in fact, there's one stat that really stood out for me, and it was this. 18% of our respondents say that they struggle with a lack of IT understanding the business issues. And 16% say they struggle with a lack of the business folks understanding IT issues. So what does that tell you? It tells you that we don't have a good, clear picture of everyone involved. And it's all about having that understanding all around. I believe the opportunity for us today is to establish that clear understanding and vision and leadership when it comes to process automation. All right. Well, what can you do? What can we do? And it starts by evaluating which processes we can digitally transform right now. The time is pressing. The need is now. What processes can we digitally transform right now that will make a difference in our organizational performance? Our research at AIIM tells us that automation that crosses boundaries is key. And in fact, 37% that are now actively working on process automation are focused on these cross-departmental processes where the process crosses boundaries of the technology or the people involved, the teams, the organization. That is where the most opportunity is found. 55% say that their process automation efforts are tied to things like customer experience and value. These are key performance indicators that go well beyond our typical notions of records management, for example. So start by identifying which processes would yield the most benefit from increased investment in automation today. What can you move forward with today? All right, well, that sounds great, Kevin, but where do I begin with all of that? And to me, it's all about improving the performance of our organization. So look for core business processes that influence that performance. 60% of our respondents said that processes that are repetitive and that use a standard operating procedure are where they're focusing their process automation efforts. Why? Because they want to free knowledge workers up from these repetitive tasks. Every person counts. Every employee counts. So let's take the robot out of the human and have the humans add human value to their activities. Where can you begin? I'd look at key core processes that every organization has. Things like accounts payable, human resources, something maybe like claims processing or onboarding, contracts. We'll talk about these things today. We'll see examples of folks doing this today. Though that is where we can really move the needle with our efforts in process automation and improving organizational performance. What happens when we do this? Well, our research tells us, again, points the way. 18% say they're saving money. 18% have better process visibility, better allocation of staff and resources, reduced error rates, time savings. These are things that we all hear about. But if I can actually move the needle in terms of these key performance indicators, cost, savings, visibility, staff resources, error rates, I'm moving the needle in terms of my organizational performance. That's where I believe our attention should be paid, and we'll hear more about that today. And in fact, how shall we move forward with all of this? How can you do it too? And it starts with what we'll hear more about, a design thinking approach, or perhaps more fitting for today, as David mentioned, an enterprise design thinking approach. This design thinking approach is the cognitive and strategic and practical processes by which we design things and implement things. Things like a launch to Mars and back, maybe building a building or a bridge or new products, design thinking. And today we're going to be looking at three elements that I think that we can use to frame our strategic efforts. We'll hear more about them today, but I'd like to briefly mention them as a framework for our thinking today. And it starts by digitizing and automating work. That's really at the heart of what we're here to talk about today. And we'll hear some approaches about process automation that enable us to digitize with things like low-code applications or cloud-ready containerized automation software. This is one way that we can gain dramatic productivity improvement while addressing the changes that are needed. Then we need to apply some intelligence to the process, and that's what AIM is all about, putting the intelligence into intelligent information management and moving the needle in terms of organizational performance. And so we'll look at creating intelligent workflows with things like AI and machine learning that do free up employees' time. And finally, augmenting the workforce. This is something we don't necessarily hear enough about. It's not about replacing the workforce, it's about augmenting it. And every employee counts, so let's make them count by removing the mundane and repetitive tasks and allow them to perform in ways that are more valuable. And so automating humans with bots where it makes sense, and really freeing up our staff to be more valuable. Every employee counts. And I think that is where we can achieve significant business success and competitive advantage through the right combination of technology and people and process. So with that, I hope that sets the stage for our discussion today. I think we're going to find out some more things to think about. I definitely would encourage everyone to download the Information Watch on Process Improvement, the ultimate guide to improving your business processes. It's available at the AIM website at aim.org/resources. And if you'd like to find me, it's easy. I'm all over the web. You can find me everywhere. You can certainly find me at the AIM podcast, AIM on Air. You can find that at aim.org/podcast, and Everyday MBA, my weekly business show, at everyday-mba.com. So with that, I'd just like to turn it back to David and keep the ball rolling. David?
Well, it's true. You are everywhere, Kevin, and thank you for being here today. I appreciate that very much. Thank you also for giving us those sort of three. It's not really a maturity model, but it is a journey you take. You do have to digitize and automate before you can really consider infusing intelligence. And then at that point, you're ready to augment your workforce. So it does form a journey, and we have organized our event to follow that journey. We will be hearing from some digitize and automate experts in our first half. We'll add the AI and machine learning concepts in the second half, and then we'll close out with augmenting our workforce. So it does give us a nice framing device. And as we are learning, Kevin, from different practitioners today, I want to ask you, as a representative of AIM here, how does AIM help users to realize the promise of automation? What are some of the programs that you all have in place that could help people?
Yeah. Well, AIM is a great resource. We are here today, for example. But one resource that certainly shouldn't be overlooked or underemphasized at all is AIM training. For years, AIM has led the way with industry training in this area. Today, virtual instructor-led training in a variety of areas of everything from strategic to tactical, information governance, compliance, security, even the technical things like automated data capture and so forth. And of course, the CIP training program that is available through AIM. I have the pleasure of being the voice for some of the training materials that supplement the study groups and so forth. And there's a wealth of training opportunities available at aim.org/training.
That is a fantastic place to start. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. If anybody has a question, by the way, as we go along for Kevin or any of our speakers, just remember to use that Q&A panel. I believe it's on the lower left of your screen. You type those in, and if each of our speakers stays on time, we should have a little time to ask your questions to make this as interactive as we possibly can. So what we're trying to do is expand the world of the digital meeting here in different ways, which is why we're going to have music and comedy, and then hopefully take your questions. We've got a nice exercise coming up. You'll be using the group chat So we're trying to push beyond. I tell people all my friends are two-dimensional now because we're looking at this little screen and that's our world. But you know, together I think we can get through this. So, well, thank you very much, Kevin. And well, we're going to actually get to what to me is very exciting to hear actual users, customers who are using the software tell us how they did it, how they succeeded, what they did. And today it is my pleasure to introduce Ryan Dennings. Ryan, let's see if we can hear you and see you.
Good morning, David.
All right, I can hear you. It is slightly, it's sound activated here. So your picture, there you go, you popped up. So let me introduce you properly now, and thank you for joining us. Ryan Dennings has been running the ECM practice at Auto Owners Insurance for 7 years. Before that, he did a number of other projects and began as a developer. And he brings to the job both a technical understanding from his experience as a developer and the business perspective to help prioritize technology so that it will actually lead to a business outcome. And that is really our theme today, isn't it? He's presented at IBM events, at user group events, telling the story of his journey at Auto Owners. And we're delighted to welcome him here to this event today. Ryan Dennings, take it away.
Thank you, David. So today I wanted to share with you my journey that we've had at Auto Owners. Let me get my slides moving. So a little bit about Auto Owners first. So Auto Owners Insurance is a Fortune 500 company. We're located in Lansing, Michigan, and we've been around for over 100 years. In addition to our namesake, which sounds like just an auto insurance company, we also write property and casualty for all personal lines, commercial lines, and life insurance. And we've also, in recent years, affiliated with 3 other insurance companies, Atlantic Casualty, Capital Insurance Group, and Concord Insurance Group. So in today's session, I want to dive in and share what we've done, why we've done it, and how we've done it. The how part in kind of a couple flavors. One, a little bit high-level technical to give some color to that aspect, but then also the how just from a project perspective and how to make sure that projects are successful. So first, the what. So what did we do? So we started on a transformation journey to upgrade our platform to use more modern technology in the enterprise content space. And that really had a focus on automating and digitizing. And we did this across our major divisions within our insurance company, which would be claims, underwriting. Didn't stop there. We went on to departmental solutions and other areas within the company because of the success we had in our major divisions. So why did we select those areas and why did we do this? We did it to improve process. So we had a realization that the processes that we were doing were old and very labor intensive, and they needed to be updated, and we needed new technology and new ways to accomplish that. So we looked to improve the process, and part of that is making better business processes and having them flow seamlessly within the organization. We wanted to reduce cost. We realized that the processes we were doing were labor intensive and they drove up our cost. But probably the most important thing and the thing that resonates more with senior management is the customer engagement. So what can we do with process automation to get a quicker response? In our world, it's, we get an application in, what can we do to quote that faster and be able to issue that policy? What can we do to get a claim in quicker and get that claim settled and rightfully pay the claimant what we owe them as quickly as we can? And by doing those things quicker and using technology to do that, we're freeing up time which time is probably everyone's most precious commodity, right? And that time can be used for interaction with our customers. So people that were doing manual data entry and classification of content are now able to have time to interact with our agents and with our customers and build those relationships which ultimately drive more business to the organization. And then we've also been able to employ some self-service options using IBM technology to automate process. So now we'll move on and we'll talk about kind of the how part and how did we do that from a technology standpoint first, and then how do we do that more from a business process standpoint. So from a technology standpoint, it starts with digitizing your content. Getting the content into the system, whether it's scanning paper, whether it's leveraging technology to import faxes directly, importing emails directly, and more recently also using mobile technology. So you have to get the content and digitize it to be able to act on it and start to really leverage future automation. So we went from digitizing content, getting it into that pipeline so that now we can automate it. And there's two key pieces to the automating part that we've really focused on in years at AutoOwners, and we've seen great results in terms of what it takes to, as Kevin said, take the bot out of the person and really free up those people so that they're not doing manual classification of content and they're not manually extracting data fields out of content. So the classification part was key. You have to understand the document that's coming up and being presented to a person. And then you have to be able to extract the relevant information out of that content. And we've looked at this as a journey that we've matured and grown over time. One of my former CEOs used to say, big projects are big problems. So we really tried to take this in bite-sized pieces, first digitizing, then classifying, and now more recently extracting content. And using that has really been a great model for us from the technology side. And then last but not least, once you've extracted the information, classified the content, moving that on into a case management solution so that the work can get done by the knowledge worker. So really moving content quickly through the digitize and automate process and getting it to a person that actually needs to do the work has had some tremendous impacts on workflow at AutoOwners in our major divisions and our departments, and has reduced the amount of effort by quite a few full-time equivalent employees that were doing the manual classification and extraction of content, and now they've moved on to work at case management, knowledge worker type positions. So now I wanted to talk a little bit about the how part, more from a project perspective and how to get going. So the first thing was building a business case, understanding what our challenges were and why we needed to overcome and do something different with those challenges, and documenting that case and socializing that within the organization. Part of that involves executive buy-in, right? There's always costs to automation initiatives, and understanding what those costs are and being able to present a total cost of ownership as we move forward with new technology and new solutions, as well as understanding what the business value is going to be for that solution. And we did a lot of studying as we built that business case to understand what people are doing today and how they're doing their jobs. And it became apparent the places where we could implement technology to really automate that process. The next part was selecting technology. We went through a pretty rigorous process of looking at different technology vendors and went from a field of 7 down to 2, and then finally down to 1, and ultimately selected IBM's Digital Business Automation suite of products to help with our automation journey. with all of my projects, I've established a stakeholder group, and we meet with, I'll call it the right amount of frequency. So for some projects, we meet monthly. For other projects, we meet every 2 weeks. And it's really a core group of people that includes frontline leaders that are involved in the project, both from a business operations perspective and also from a technical perspective, all the way up to directors and junior officers that are involved in the project. And what I found is that group of people, if you didn't work with those people before, you form a bond, right? And you get to know each other, and you get to work through your implementation together. And it really creates a great group of people that bonded, but also can make key decisions and can make them quickly. One of the challenges with projects is, the person that needs to make the decision right and getting the decision made. So this group is empowered to make those decisions and make them swiftly, and that helps speed projects along. Change management is key. We've got to make sure that people are going to buy into this, right? You don't want to go on your go live date and have everyone hate it. So things that we've done to help with that are involve people that are going to be impacted by the change early in the process. Get them involved, get them to see the technology, get them to see the change, get them to test the change in what we call a model office situation. So as it relates to digitizing content, we ask people to come and bring stuff that you normally scan, and here, scan it for real, and let's try it out on our new process and make sure that, we did everything that you need it to do. And that was very telling, because often we did find some gaps, right? But we found those gaps before we went to production, and we involved those people in the process. So when we did go to production, they were involved and they were champions for our project. Measuring success. I say that measuring success starts on day one of the project. You really need to understand what the key information is that you need to capture to know that the project is successful, so that you've got those results at the end of the project or on the go live date, so you can immediately start reporting numbers and sharing the value that you got from your project. And lastly, promote it internally. So fortunately at AutoOwners, within our IT division, we have a blog, and different people can contribute to that. That's been a great opportunity to socialize what we've been doing to automate and digitize electronically internally. I've also been fortunate that usually my projects are what are considered corporate automation priority projects, and there's a quarterly newsletter that goes out on there. So that gives us an opportunity to share success. So as we were sharing success that we had with our major divisions, then some of the smaller departments are like, well, we want in on this. When can we have it? When can we automate our processes? So it's really been a source of, generating additional, work, I guess, for me, and definitely keeping me busy. So thank you for your time today. It was great to share about what we've done and why we've done it and how we've done it. But I don't know if there's any questions.
Well, let's remind people that they can type questions in, and Ryan will take them live. You can use the Q&A panel there. And I know it works because people said where they were from, but we haven't seen any questions. I bet you've got one for Ryan. I have one that I'm interested in, Ryan, because if you read mainstream media, there's a through line, a story that people are afraid of automation, that people are afraid that it will take away their jobs. Have you run into that in your job in Auto Owners Insurance? And how do you deal with that? Is it taken care of by that sort of upfront, come on and scan your own thing? Or what are you seeing?
Sure. So one thing that's a really positive thing about auto owners, and people might have noticed it on that first slide, is, we have a culture of not ever laying anyone off, which is a culture that's somewhat probably unique to us. So that creates some level of comfort with associates that, even if the responsibilities of my daily job change, I'm going to have a different job, right? So one of the things that we did, especially as we automated content and classified it and extracted it, was to share with people, hey, like, yes, this is going to replace some of your daily job, but this is what you'll be doing instead. And often that was, either moving on to a new position or a new opportunity within the company, or it was, sharing and getting more engaged with interaction with the customer. So moving from kind of back end type processes to more front end and more visible customer facing opportunities. So people really have embraced that change and the new opportunities that they've gotten as a result of this.
Wonderful, Ryan. I'm surprised and delighted to hear that you have a job for life at Auto Owners Insurance if you want it. It sounds like you must work with human resources somewhat.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're definitely an area that's involved both in using our technology and then also involved, from an operational standpoint when we need to find other opportunities for associates. So definitely they're engaged in our process changes from a couple different angles.
Wonderful. We have a question from the audience. Thank you so much, Richard, for sending it along. It is one of those trick questions, though, which is kind of fun to see. I always see them. It's about the accuracy of extraction, Ryan. And since a lot of what you're talking about is document processing and capture, what has your experience been there? How do you deal with the accuracy issue?
Sure. So in terms of accuracy, we try and build in a certain level of validation to that. So sometimes from a technical standpoint, that's regular expressions to look for and make sure that a policy number is of the format that we expect it to be, as well as doing system of record integrations. So in that same policy number example, if we think we see a policy number because it fits the pattern, we also call out to the system of record and make sure that it is truly a valid policy number. So definitely do some levels of validation checking to make sure that the data we're extracting is good before we send it on downstream.
And that is the best practice. So thank you for sharing that. I did come from the capture world, and that's always been, top of mind for customers. There's another question, Ryan, about the time it takes to implement. Now, you talked about a journey, so the answer may be an interesting one. But how long does it take to implement some of the applications you told us about?
Sure. So I'll use maybe a more recent example. So we did a project recently for our investment team, and we did that in a few months. We do monthly sprints, and we did that in 3 months to stand up a capture platform and have them start sending through content. What we typically do, though, is we kind of look at it from a maturity perspective, first focusing on digitizing and getting the content through, and then coming back in some future sprints and keep maturing both the classification and extraction part. It's a maturity process, and by getting the content coming through, then we can analyze and see what's coming through, and then we can keep maturing the classification and extraction part of it.
Nice. There's one last one, and I'll ask you to give a short answer so we stay on time, but it is to do with, did you measure the metrics so that, you can point to actual facts when about taking the bot out of the human, that people are actually doing more, getting more done? Did you do the before and after picture?
Yes, we did. So we studied the effort that was involved before we implemented, and then we also capture metrics from the DataCap software that we use to analyze on a monthly basis the throughput and what the full-time equivalent savings are, in addition to number of documents that are automatically classified and extracted. So.
This is wonderful, Ryan. Thank you so much for sharing. I think our industry is wiser for it and better for it when people share what they've learned with others, and all our boats rise together. So thank you so much for joining us today, Ryan. And we shall continue to move along with a very interesting, fun a segment that I'm looking forward to here. Colin, are you there?
Hey, I'm here. Can you hear me, David?
I can hear you wonderfully. I know I'll see you in a second when you get started. I want to introduce you now properly. And Colin is an important piece here of this whole theme that we have talking about how to realize the promise. And I mentioned design thinking in the opening, and this is that segment. Colin is a global design strategist and business lead with the IBM Garage. And Colin assists clients worldwide in transforming their offerings, industries, and cultures through what he calls a human-centric focus. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that. And so now I will ask Colin Budd to take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, David. Hey, everyone. So delighted to be here. I've got a pretty interesting topic today, and that is how to utilize design thinking to realize the promise of automation. Now, to kind of get some context of why I've been invited to talk today, I have the great pleasure of being on a really innovative team at IBM called the Garage. Now, we're helping clients around the world do things like automation, digitizing, AI, blockchain, you name it. Whether it's helping enterprises like Siemens reduce carbon footprint through AI, helping fintechs and startups bring new capabilities to market, or just really casually helping giant airliners like Lufthansa or American Airlines when it comes to travel efficiencies. And for any project we do, no matter what the geo, industry, or problem and tech domain, we like to do it through the themes of speed, agility, collaboration, and I think most importantly, and I'm going to focus on it today, intention. Now, to have those four things happen, you have to have a pretty good methodology end to end, and we do. So we use things like enterprise design thinking to help us with the vision and strategy. Things like lean startup to make sure that we're comfortable building something that has a hypothesis and success criteria, so we're working against it, working fast. And using things like DevOps, cloud native practices, Agile, so we can work quickly and maneuver as things move with us. We kind of jokingly call it sort of startup speed, but enterprise scale. Now, I say all of this because that first piece of the puzzle, enterprise design thinking, is absolutely crucial for everything that follows. So what exactly is enterprise design thinking? Well, we like to show, not tell around here. So I'm going to ask everyone to find that group chat window. You might already still have it up. If not, it's in the bottom little dock, if you will. It's a little chat bubble. Click on that, get ready to type, because this just became interactive. I've got a design challenge for you all. So I want you in just 10 seconds time to describe an alarm clock. That easy. I would bet you used one this morning. So just type it into the chat window. Maybe it was a phone, maybe it was a loud child, maybe it was a bell and hammer like on screen here. Whatever you used, feel free to enter it now. A few more seconds. Everyone got really silent when this became interactive. Awesome. All right, perfect. I'm seeing it come through. Okay, great. So we'll stop it there, pencils down, no cheating type of thing. We're seeing things like cell phone. A lot of people use their phone, something that tracks time, mechanical device to provide an analog time, set to a certain hour, things like that. Okay, not bad, but relatively predictable and pretty homogeneous. Let's try this again. But this time, I want you now to spend 10 seconds describing a better way to wake up in the morning. Okay, go for it. 10 seconds is yours. How would you want to wake up in the morning? What would be an ideal experience for waking up in the morning? All right, a few seconds left. Perfect. All right, we have things like having someone bring you coffee and slippers, waking up naturally with music, actually quality sleep, having the sunlight come up. Okay, I love this. This is well done. Round of applause to you all. This is way more innovative, not bell and hammer and a thing that has a timekeeper. So what changed? How to become so much more innovative in 30 seconds time? Well, I'm being coy about it, but we didn't become more innovative. We just changed the prompt. And that's really the essence of design thinking. Because when you say describe an alarm clock, you happen to have a prototypical thing in mind. You've got a schema, you think alarm clock. Whatever you use, it's what you know. And oftentimes, we're actually kind of given that marching order. This might be blasphemous, but we might be told to go automate something or go told to use a chatbot here or there. And it's a good directive, but it's a directive. It doesn't step back and really think about the full picture. Design thinking actually makes us do that. So when we say describe a better way to wake up in the morning, well, it's an experience. And it's one that inherently has a user, in this case us, involved at the center. So it's human-centric. And that's the value. If nothing else, that's the value. Design thinking allows us to be a couple things. And IBM did a great job defining design thinking for large enterprises and any company in between. We call it enterprise design thinking. And our key principles are exactly what we just saw. It's a focus on user outcomes. It's having diverse, empowered teams. And it's aiming for restless reinvention. Now, what does that mean exactly? It means being human-centric rather than focusing on technical solutions. So not leading with the tech or not leading with the solution, actually starting with the human and what they need. As you saw from here, we had so many people from so many different backgrounds. By my last count, over 120 people. You all have different roles, different colleges, different companies. And that means we're a diverse and empowered group. And therefore our ideas, sure, we're aligned at a human level of wanting coffee and sunrise, but they're still really empowered and different. And last but not least, we've all heard fail fast, fail cheaply. But the real message at heart there is to learn fast, learn cheaply. So do things quickly, but to learn from them. Now, I want to dispel a misnomer. I think oftentimes design thinking gets a bad rep because of the word design. Inherently, people think of it as being something as aesthetics, art, design, wireframes, things like that. While that is a portion of design, let me flip the definition. Design is about problem solving. How you manage to log on today, how you're balancing virtual work and maybe your children's virtual education. You're problem solvers, you're designers. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, you absolutely are. And more than that, design is the intent behind an outcome. And there's that word again, it's intentional. It's thinking through something with intention and having a well-defined strategy. So at this point, you're wondering, okay, great, but how does enterprise design thinking really factor into digitizing work and automating? Well, my answer is a little coy as well, but if we don't know where we're going, we might not get there. You see, when IBM approaches any problem, whether we're doing it for ourselves or helping clients with this, it could be automation, it could be blockchain, it could be solved by a lot of things. We don't start the tech, we don't start the solution. We step back and observe. And this is your secret sauce to steal. We've made this all public. We have what's called the loop. It's how we approach any challenge, any problem space. We begin by observing the world today, reflecting on what we saw, the users, their pains, and then actually making something, doing something to see what's the result, and looping again, observing what just happened, reflecting on it, and improving and iterating again, again, again. That's a restless piece, the reinvention always. To break it down, let's say you're pretty confident that automation absolutely is the path forward, and I hope it is. Begin by observing. Think through, what are we really trying to solve? If we think automation, if we think AI could be the path forward, well, let's step back. What's the problem space we're seeing? Not just this one slice, but the full spectrum of the problem space. Who are the users involved? What are their processes today? And what are the challenges they have? What are some of the friction points, bottlenecks? What are we trying to solve for? And when you have that observation in place, you begin to reflect. Okay, what could we do? Thinking broadly, widely, again, beyond just technology and solutions of today. And then more importantly, what should we do? What's high impact to users in our company? What's feasible to actually deliver on? And most importantly, how do we know if we're successful? And if we stop there, it's a job well done, but it's kind of analysis paralysis. You have to go one step forward. You have to make something. And so you can use things like minimum viable products, MVPs, a very lean startup concept, to actually quickly test against your hypothesis and gain validated learning by doing just enough to gain a lot. And all this to say, you're putting something in the hands of users, not a POC, not a throwaway experiment, something real with market validity that you can actually learn and gain business value from. And of course, loop again, did it actually help? If not, how can we improve on it? And just iterate, loop and loop and loop. Now, this is all conjecture, I'm sure. Let me put into actual tangible examples. I want to focus on Siemens. I love this. It was such a great sort of showstopper moment. Siemens has a very real problem. They want to lower their carbon emissions. In fact, more than that, they have a goal for themselves and somewhat accompanied by the Paris Accords, but how can we get to a net zero carbon footprint by 2030? And more importantly, they set a goal for themselves this year to half their current carbon footprint. So what they found is that employee travel tends to lead to the most emissions. And they have really disconnected data. They have entrenched, as we all do, corporate habits. And all that's really not helping correct behaviors to achieve that goal. So they came to IBM and they came to the garage. We had an incredible workshop that allowed us to really begin to dive into the space by observing, thinking through all the users, who these employees are traveling, what are their pains, brainstorming ideas, the art of the possible, and coming out with a really defined vision. Not something we had to do, by 2030, but what we want to aim for by 2030, aspire to. But we don't stop there. That would be great, but aspirational. We actually break it down to risks. Where will this go wrong? What things are we assuming? What risks are we taking? How will this break if we try to build it tomorrow? And it's those things we know least about and need to learn most about, we actually use to inform and fuel our initial MVPs, those minimum viable products. We don't go for low-hanging fruit. That would be a really easy job, and I think we wouldn't want to do it. We want to go for things we have to figure out first, because we're going to hit them eventually. And so if that weren't cool enough, I think it's cool. If that weren't cool enough, we actually did all this. In 6 weeks' time, our team is so fast, I don't know how we do it. In 6 weeks' time, we built out a watch-and-equipped dashboard that now when an employee at Siemens goes to book travel, they're seeing a sort of AI-empowered experience where it's saying, look, if you want to go, say, New York to Philadelphia, great, here are your 3 options. You can go by plane, train, automobile. They're the carbon sort of emissions for each one. Yes, you can offset the plane for this extra money, things like that. And they can choose whatever one they prefer. It's their convenience, their choice. And additionally, they have a dashboard that actually gives them real-time information about their choices. How much have you actually chosen eco-friendly behaviors? And the rewarded points if they're doing a good job. And more importantly, they're actually seeing this kind of come together by actually really incorporating these behaviors into a broader Siemens-wide carbon footprint sort of tracker. And because it's a showstopper moment, we actually kept going beyond the 6 weeks. We built this on blockchain. As you see in the background, use this really cool Watson BMW i8, that electric supercar, with tons of sensors equipped to actually really track in real time. We did so much. But the whole idea is, how can we make sure that, hey, look, well, this first piece, if we do this, will that inform behaviors? And if yes, let's scale it. Let's keep iterating and going further and further. So all that to say, quick conclusion here. Automation absolutely can be the right path forward, but you don't know until you know, right? You have to know where you're going. So using design thinking, particularly in design thinking workshops, helps you step back and make sure you understand really what are we trying to solve for, who are we solving for, what should we do and could we do, and then really come to an alignment on how we're actually going to do it. Now, that means also focusing on user outcomes, not tech solutions. We all are told oftentimes, build an alarm clock, right? We get it all the time, and sometimes above our pay grade. But if you kind of be a champion for the user, you're able to kind of break past this and think, okay, well, do they need an alarm clock, or do they need a better way to wake up in the morning? And of course, observe, reflect, make, repeat. Don't be happy with good enough. Don't be happy with just sort of aspiration. Create something real, learn a lot from it, and continue that process. And I think the biggest one I want to leave you with is that, frankly, if we're not solving the right problem, we are wasting our time, and more concerningly, our users' time. So all that to say, here comes the marketing spill, right? If you're excited about all this, if you're kind of curious, how does this group, this garage, actually do all this in this little time? Come talk to us. Come talk to me. We actually have a really great process that brings us all together, from our initial framing, which allows us to understand all the business opportunities, really high level, through envisioning to think through all the things we could do a design thinking workshop, into architecture, building out in terms of weeks, and then scaling and beyond. Garage is often described as the front door to IBM. I think that's really true these days. And for everything we do, it's that kind of startup speed, enterprise scale. Last thing I'll leave you with, if you're actually more than excited, you want to just talk, you want to get going, we're not going to hold you back. That first piece, that framing session, it's yours at no charge. We actually love to invest where we can, and this is one of those moments as like a thanks to you for joining today. We'd be excited to talk, and we'd be excited to schedule that framing session with you, that first piece of the puzzle. My email is down there, colin.m.budd@ibm.com. If you can't tell by now, I love what I do. This is such a fun team and a fun space, so I'm glad you're all here, and it's been a pleasure chatting today.
Magnificent, Colin. Thank you so much. You have brought your joy and your energy and it is highly appreciated here. So I feel like in 15 minutes I really understand much better what design thinking is and why it's a good thing. And so thank you for bringing us that. And I feel like we ought to have a song right now. I mean, that's how good I feel right now. So hey, Stella and Ian, coming in from Santa Rosa, California, are you excited too?
Oh, it's what I
Woohoo! You have another song for us.
We do. This is Skylark. Skylark, have you anything to say to me? Won't you tell me where my love can be? Is there a meadow in the mist where someone's waiting to be kissed? Skylark, have you seen a valley green with spring, where my heart can go a journey over the shadows and the rain to a blossom-covered lane? And in your lonely flight, haven't you heard the music of the night? Wonderful music, faint as the will of a wisp, crazy as a loon, sad as a gypsy serenading. Skylark, I don't know if I can find these things, but my heart is writing on for you. So if you see them anywhere, won't you leave me there?
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, don't go away. I want to ask you guys how you're doing. This is Stella Heath and Ian Scherer. They have a lot of musical projects together, but obviously a great love for the American Songbook. And we talked earlier, and we picked out some different songs that had to do with promises. So this one is kind of the promise of love, isn't it? But it's just a little out of reach.
Yeah, absolutely. So many songs about that. Love that.
Just a little bit. How's everything today? You're in Santa Rosa, California, and of course, you know that area has been in the news a lot lately. How are you holding up?
We're holding up okay. We're here at Ian's home, which is in like downtown Santa Rosa, and the fire got pretty close to
It's about 2 miles.
Yeah, 2 miles from right here.
Yeah.
So it was pretty tense this last week, but I think they've got things starting to be contained, and of course Napa County was hit really hard too. Yeah, but the smoke is starting to clear. Things are getting better.
There's a lot of ash on the ground. It looks like it's snowing sometimes.
Yeah.
Wow. It's well, we're awfully glad you could join us today, and we do hope that the smoky season ends soon. It came early, and we hope it'll leave early. So thank you. We're going to invite you back a little bit later and continue this wonderful experience, the joy and the sadness, everything all mixed together here in 2020, a year that we will all remember for sure. It's only October, and I'm already doing year-end review. Actually, I'd like this year to end as soon as possible. Anyway, on that happy note, let's segue to another of our customer users who is going to tell us about their experience and how they realize the promise of automation or are in the process of doing so. Harpreet, are you there?
Yeah. Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine, and it's awfully good to hear your voice. And now I can see you. So let me introduce you properly, and then we would love to hear your story about containerization and the cloud, which is a huge initiative. Many companies are looking at it now so that automation can be easier to consume, easier to deploy, faster, cheaper, all those good things. So for the past 2 years, Harpreet has led the initiative at Kemper Insurance to move the company's FileNet application into a containerized private cloud. Prior to that, he spent 13 years at HSBC running their FileNet ECM system. We're delighted to have such an elite technical resource, but we've asked him, or I have, to keep it simple for people like me. So we can understand some of the great benefits that you're talking about. So Harpreet, it's all you.
Thanks, David. So yeah, let me get started here. Once again, I started working Kemper about 6 years back, and when I joined Kemper, we didn't have any kind of like a document management software, or it was a legacy. So I started from the greenfield and built everything up from the ground. A couple of years ago, we did an acquisition of a company which was almost the same our size. So we pretty much became double in size, and then they adapted our content management software system, which is running on IBM FileNet. Also, we interchangeably call it a P8. So all of a sudden, there was a need to scale up to get this additional load on our system. Another thing also happened was that we chose to close down our data center and move to a different data center. So we had an option to move to the Birmingham data center or go to the cloud. So we chose to go to the cloud. At that time, the decision was already made to go to AWS. So we end up going to the AWS data center. So let me just quickly start with overview of what Kemper does. Once again, this is a P&C company, property and casualty. We offer insurance for auto, home, life. We do the servicing of 6.4 million policies, represented by about 30,000 agents, and now we have about 9,300 employees. And this is where, like before, we had about like 5,000, and now we have almost about 9,300. So became double in size, became double in load, also needed to become double in the capacity. So the ability to scale was one of the main thing that we were facing. So this is where we began our journey to the cloud. That was one of the main initiatives. So let's move to the next slide. Not able to hear you. Oh, okay. Can you guys hear me okay still? Okay. So what I'm showing in front of me is just what we have right now. That we have migrated to the cloud. I'm not going to go much in that deep, as David asked me to keep it simple. And I'll just quickly go over this slide. What you're seeing in front of you is the FileNet Cloud Pack that IBM offers. Within that, what we have is 3 components of FileNet. One is the navigator on the left-hand side box that you see, and then which is the front end. On the right-hand box, which is the CMIS, which is the integration layer for the clients to connect to the backend, which is the content engine, which is the backend. The backend is basically where you host like most of your documents, and then the metadata, and the backend, and essentially the whole application itself connects to the database. This is where you actually host your metadata, your policy number, customer first name, last name, that sort of things. It also connects to the the LDAP for the authentication. And then the actual documents, they go into the S3 buckets itself. So this is like the very high level. On top of it, what you have is the SSO. We have the SAML SSO to be able to connect with a single sign-on. And then we also have the our in-house applications or external applications connect to this. And all this is running on the EKS Kubernetes cluster. So what we had before was everything running on like a bare metal servers on the legacy software. You know, you have this Java application that IBM has built, and that's running on the WebSphere application server, and that's running on like these bare metal servers. What we have done now is with the help of FileNet Cloud Pak that IBM has developed, everything is containerized. I cannot go much into details. I might bore you guys on that, but basically everything is what you call like a lightweight virtual machines, if I can call it that. These are the Docker containers which are orchestrated and load balanced with Kubernetes cluster itself. So all this now is running in AWS itself. Let me move to the next slide. Okay, in this slide, I'm showing why we chose to move to the cloud. Once again, we did have an option also to go to another data center, and we could have just lifted and shifted the servers, you know, those bare metal servers or like a Windows machines that we had, and we moved them. But what we done was we actually moved all that into the container world into AWS itself. So here's why. Once again, the main thing was scaling. We needed the ability to scale as soon as possible. If you have, let's just say, like a bare metal servers, right, or even like a virtual machines, if you have to scale, at least in our case, it's literally mini to at least a mid-level project to be able to, you know, procure a server, install Windows on it, install WebSphere on it, install, you know, the FileNet on it, configure it, you know, with a load balancer and then the DNS and all the good stuff. You know, with this Cloud Pak running on the Kubernetes service, literally it's automated, the scaling itself. For example, if this load comes in, we have what you call autoscaler. So it'll automatically generate a new machine in real time. So let's just say if your CPU goes up 80%, right? We have a trigger on that. So it will detect, the cluster will detect, hey, the load is high. Let me create a new machine on the fly in the runtime in production. And right away, a new machine will be generated. In our case, a Linux VM. Automatically, the software will be installed on it, the WebSphere Liberty and all that, which is we're getting everything through a container, and then you know, it'll be connected to a load balancer. So basically, the point here is that automatically it will scale by itself, and you don't have to do anything, you know, because everything is just automated. The second thing is the automation itself, to be able to automate the entire infrastructure itself. So rather than me deploying anything in production, I have no access to production. So basically, it automatically will deploy into production through, like, we have Jenkins jobs and stuff. I can't go much into detail, but basically, because of Cloud Pak containers and being on the cloud itself, one of the main things is to be able to automate everything, and everything is automated itself. So whether me or anybody creating, you know, even for the first time, the software on the production, with a click of a button, everything gets deployed and configured. Maintenance. It takes about 5 minutes now to be able to upgrade to another version of a container. Because once again, we're not really installing anything, we're just deploying it because of the containers. So literally, once again, before, if we have to move to the next version, it was, you know, at least a mid-project. Now, it's about, I would say, half a day job. Environment, you know, to be able to get, like, quickly create another dev environment, you know, because of automation, we can do that. High availability, because of the cloud itself, we are automatically load balanced and available in 3 different availability zones. So that's like overview of why we moved to the cloud itself. And once again, the Cloud Pak containers has really helped us to get us there quickly. Now let's just talk about what and how we have done it. So I have segmented this slide in 5 components of migration, but overall, at a high level, you have three main things. One is your servers, your infrastructure, right? You have, somewhat of a software running on a data center. You have to lift and shift that, right? So that is your the infrastructure layer. The second is your data layer, right? Where you have to, once the software is running on the destination, like the cloud, now you have to move the data over, your documents and everything, right? Your metadata. So that's the other layer. And then top of the layer is your applications, your connections, whatever the external applications that you have to move them over either to the cloud or have them pointing over to the new system running in the cloud. So that's like three high-level components. But let me just quickly go over the 5 that I have dissected in there. But once again, like I said, for software, we are migrating from on-prem to the cloud. And the reason why I segmented in 5 level is to be able to show you from the project management perspective. Because the whole point of me giving this presentation is if somebody is thinking about moving to the cloud, right, especially for FileNet P8, what would it take? So what I'm trying to do here is show, like, if you're going to start this journey, this might help you in kind of seeing is the multiple streams of the project management. Once again, this is like our opinion, our approach, not suggesting that you should do this, but something like, just giving a feedback of what we have done. And this might help you in kind of thinking of, what kind of layers you have to be thinking through. So once again, the top layer is the software, right? So got to move the software from the on-prem over to the cloud containers. The second is the content, moving from the NAS storage in our case, or it could be any local storage you have, to the cloud storage. In our case, we moved from the NAS over to the S3 buckets. How we move there in FileNet P8, there are a couple of very good tools with a sweep that you can do natively within P8 itself, or you can also use a migration device like AWS offers, like a Snowball in their case, which literally is basically some kind of a big old USB drive. It comes in, you put the data in, it ships it to the AWS data center. So that's the content part, like, and the reason why I mentioned this is it's a very significant part. So you will spend a lot of time on that too. The second is the third one is a database, moving to be able to move from the the database from on-prem to the cloud. That's another piece that you will spend a lot of time on it. And if you move the database, this way you can quickly duplicate your system to the cloud rather than building it, from the ground up. Interface, point the interfaces, like whatever the external application you have or scanners you have, OCR or whatnot, any other applications that are connecting to the on-prem, you have to now point them to the cloud. So that's a fourth stream that would also take a significant time in your project. And the lastly is the automation. Once again, the whole point of moving to the cloud is automate. At least it's one of the major reasons. So this is where we have also spent a lot of time. And the reason why I put that in here is when I started on this project, I had no clue that I'm going to end up spending so much time on this. But this is where your DevOps comes into picture. So once we have done something, now you have to automate it. For example, once you deploy, DevOps will go in and automate the deployment of these clusters or these containers for you. So this is where you will spend a lot of time on it too. So once again, these are like 5 main streams that I think are significant chunks or sections of your project for your cloud migration. Okay, in the last slide, I just want to share major project planning tips. And what I mean here is things that we have encountered and what helped us in making this project a success. Once again, in our case, we had about 8 different businesses to move over, like HR, property and casualty, accounting, life and health. So what we did was we identified first what to migrate. we have like so many different test environments, but we decided that we're only going to take INT data, not the SysD data or UAT data or Dev or Dev1 data, only the INT data from the non-prod, and then of course everything from the prod. We also did like a data retention, and only the data that we wanted to retain. We ported over. So definitely see what you want to take over. Also, do the easiest migration first. We identify some of the businesses, they were not using our system that heavily. They were more for archive. So we made them a pilot and ported them over first. So that also helps. And then also do in waves. Identify and group together which businesses should go over first. And then always take the complex one later on. Test the network performance early on. And what I mean by that, this was a surprise to me. I thought network would be a no-brainer, but network connection was not that good, just because of how the connections are set up between our company and the AWS. We are improving upon it, but that was a challenge. So know how your speed is. That would really come and factor in the data migration, in the database migration, in the performance testing. So network performance also a big thing to consider. IBM Lab Services. This is where we got help with moving the data itself, and IBM Lab Services really came in handy to help us understand and do a quick start on the deployment of containers. Once when I learned it, they actually showed me like a one-on-one training how to deploy. Once I deployed, they did some hand-holding for about I think it was like a couple of months project, and that really got us a jump start on this project. So definitely IBM Lab Services really helped us. Do get started early on because contracts can take a while. So once you start your project, do build that in. Cut out to project early, cloud early. What that means is that you can actually start to send your data or connect your data to S3 buckets already, or whatever the cloud storage that you will use. Just because of the finite containers, you can actually specify not only the local storage, but now they have a feature to be able to connect to the cloud storage also. So take advantage of that. Connect to it early. This way, you know that, let's just say if you have started to send the data from January of 2020 to the cloud, you only have to migrate what's on your local storage from December 2019 and before. So that also kind of helps you to kind of limit the data that you have to migrate. Also, at last, it took us about double the time for us to migrate. I started out, I thought it'll be easy task. As a matter of fact, moving to Kubernetes with a cloud container, you can literally do in about like a month, especially with the IBM Lab Services. But it's been 2 years. I'm still here working on this project because automation, migration, integration, all that stuff takes a while, So this is not an easy task, definitely. So it can take a while, And business communication. Do communicate to business, regarding what you are migrating, the waves, because we did kind of came into a situation that we said that we are migrating, but this date, but we failed to communicate it to a lot of businesses. And it was a surprise to some of the businesses that we are moving. So that was one miss on our part. So once again, business communication is also very important. I think that's pretty much it I wanted to share with you guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. David, I'm not able to hear you actually. Are you on mute? At least I am. I'm not getting it. The feed.
Let me ask Teresa if she can hear me.
No, I can hear you now. I can hear you now. I got it.
Okay. There is a delay, and that might be what's happening. I want to thank you. You actually did what we set out to do. I understood 90% of what you said. So I think it's very important that we understand what's happening under the hood, what's happening with the technology. You did a great job of explaining what the technology people are working on and going through to make sure you can realize the promise of automation, get it deployed, scale it up, as you said, much quicker, and manage costs and migration and upgrades in a much better way. So I thank you so much for coming and sharing with us what the magic is, the science that you follow and that makes these technologies work. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we are doing great on our very jam-packed agenda. And so I'm going to ask Mike Prentice if we can hear him. Hello, coming in.
Hi, David. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and that means that you are well connected here, and I will introduce you. And boy, are we moving along in a nice clip here, Mike, and a lot of good information. So you're going to be our last serious presentation of the morning, the first half. So let me introduce you. The last time I got out of the house, I was in Dallas at the AIIM conference in March. And who is it that kept me up late as usual, talking shop, but also how to ride a mechanical bull? And that is my next guest here, Mike Prentice. He's made a career out of helping organizations successfully deploy automation. I know he probably understood 100% of what Harpreet just said. But he was at IBM for quite a while, and he is currently one of the stars at the IBM business partner Integro, who recently became part of Innovative Discovery. And so I could go on and on, but I think it's better that we hear from Mike, who has another piece of this puzzle of realizing the promise. Mike?
Thank you, David. So what I want to do is extend upon and add to the conversations that have had and you will be having. So the first part that we want to talk about is the promise of intelligent automation. You've already heard parts of it. I'm going to extend to it. And interestingly enough, I'm going to really kind of play off a lot of what Colin was talking about with design thinking. But first, intelligent automation. What you wind up hearing a lot about is a lot of technology: BPM, IBM, intelligent capture, AI, machine learning, RPA, containers, SaaS, hybrid cloud. Holy cow, there's a lot of technology. But what you did hear early on is, well, that's great with all this technology. How do we make it work? And it's trying to balance technology versus business needs. And what I'm going to try and focus on this part is the business needs. Understand your business objectives and how they tie to desired outcomes. Your strategic and tactical goals are very important to understand, comprehend, and then we're going to use a set of methodologies. So it's very important to understand that, one, Colin talked about design thinking, and I'm going to talk about a couple others. And as the title alluded to, is about customer journey mapping. But first, I want to talk about building a context around an empathy map. Now, design thinking also uses empathy maps, so it's very important to understand there's a lot of overlap with all this. But first, why an empathy map? It's about understanding your customer, knowing what they are, who they are. What does it mean to create an empathy map? Well, here's a picture of it over there on the right, and I'm going to go to a little bit detail in this for a moment, but just kind of understand what it is that you're looking to do. You want to understand and empathize with a person. Now, the first thing you should notice right off the bat in the middle of that circle is the name Jamie. So we're going to talk about a real person, and we're going to talk about a real person that interacts with you, whether that's an internal employee or external to your organization. And we want to understand how they think, what they say, what they do, and how they feel. Now, this particular example here is about buying a TV. We've all bought a TV. So what do you think? And I know a lot of this is a little fuzzy. It's this type of information is all over the internet. I just grabbed one picture just to give you a concept. But what do they think? Is am I wasting too much time? Is there's too many acronyms? That should sound familiar. Which one's the best for me? What do they say? What do you think? What size is the best? What do they do? Well, they do research. They talk to friends. They compare products. And what do they feel? They feel fear and excitement. That seems like a contradictory set of feelings, right? Well, no, you're afraid of spending $3,000 on a TV, but you're really excited about watching your favorite show or sports program in that type of view. So what that means is what we're all used to seeing is when we build a system is saying, hey, there's a legal user, right? Our legal user is going to come in, they're going to do this. No, what we're identifying is Sarah from legal. So, you know, Sarah, she's the one that comes in and she brings the donuts on Thursday and she talks about her big backpacking adventures that she's been on. She's not really married yet. She's kind of thinking about it. She's really dedicated to her legal profession. She's gone to several outside conferences. She understands what's going on, really passionate about this one aspect within legal specifically. Knows some things about UIs and really kind of more modern, but likes things to be given to her, told what to do because she's got a lot of stuff going on. Well, that's a very different description than legal user. You know, we're going to give them a screen, they're going to be able to see a matter, and they can go look at and do their stuff that they do, right? Well, when we understand what the person is doing, who they are, what they think, what they feel, we as an overall solution practitioner group trying to deliver a business problem, it changes our perspective. We start to understand them and what they want to do and how we need to serve them better. So when you're taking, say, as Colin pointed out, design thinking, when you want to come up with ideas, that's great. You come up with ideas. Now have ideas around what Sarah might want. And that is really where things can come to play. The next part, when we look at this, is a journey map. So a lot of information to go in here. Now we've defined our empathy. We know the people that are going to interact with our solution in some way, shape, or form. So what do? Well, we're going to define a journey. Well, what the heck is a journey? I use this phrase called a value stream. Depends on where in the business world you come from. A value stream is something that derives value for the business. It's either a process. It's important to understand that the process does not mean a digital workflow. It means a business process. There could be people involved. There could be interactions. It could be delivery trucks. It could be power coming into the building. It's anything that goes into this process. And depending on the type of value stream, you know, it could be cost associated to it or just a basic diagram. Why am I talking about this? Understand the scope of what you're going to try and look at and understand. This journey map ties to your business directives, your business objectives. We're trying to increase customer service or customer satisfaction. Great. Around what? Well, our online orders. We seem to have a lot of issues with online orders. They're not generating the revenue that we want. Oh, so we want customer service and increased revenue. So let's look at the order process. Okay, now we have a journey map. And what are we doing this for? Well, we understand what they're doing, the actions of our users, i.e. our empathy maps, touch points. What do they do? Who do they interact with? Or what do they interact with? Again, their emotions. And then we determine pain points and then eventually solutions. So let's take a little bit closer look at all this. So here's our journey map. Lots of information all on here. So the first part we want to talk about is the persona. So who are we going to be looking at this process from? What's their point of view when they come in and look at this? And then we talk about a scenario. So, okay, so that's great. We're going to talk about the, online order process for whatever organization it is, whether it's buying insurance, going to Amazon, signing up for an electrical usage or cable or whatever it might be. And you determine the scenario. You just kind of put a little box around it. So, where do we really start? Where does the customer journey start? Does it start when they click buy? Does it start when they go to the website? Does it start when they buy a car? Does it start when they turn 16 and are old enough to start driving? Where do you want to start? There's no right or wrong answer. You need to determine where you want to start. And of course, where do you want to end? You want to end, when they say, I've taken their payment and, we're out, we're done, that's all we care about? Do we want to have follow-up? Well, what's follow-up? What does that mean? Do we go past the point of them canceling service? Well, where do we want to end? Again, the same thing. Once you define the boundaries, now we go into it. And you create these phases, as you see, with the blue parts on top. And then we look at the actions. What does Joe do? In case you can't read it, this is Joe. Joe is doing stuff with our context. What is he doing? Everything that he does, whether it's, logging into a website, going into a store, receiving something in the mail, whatever it might be, all of these actions are written down, identified, and that helps us scope this problem. And then we get into what system interactions exist, right? So we have our technical part in here. It's very important, though, when we're doing this, we're not focusing on technology. We're truly just identifying the technology aspects used. They use this URL. Okay, that's tied to our SAP system. Great, SAP system. Oh, they're going into over here. So they're using our CRM system. Great. Oh, we're using the portal online purchasing program. Okay, that's a custom app. Great. We'll just identify these. That's important to do the identification. So then we have this all set up. We know what they're doing and we know the systems they're working with. And then how do they feel? Is this a great interaction? Is it a negative interaction? Or is it a neutral interaction? It's really, for this part, that simple. These parts are very important to understand. This can help tie in because it's tying back, again, what's our objectives? Our objectives are increase customer satisfaction and increase revenue, okay? So sometimes it's assumed they can go hand in hand, but there are other ways to increase revenue, right? We can either increase sales or decrease costs. So that's important to know. So now that we have this part, now we can identify pain points. Great, okay. Now that we've gone through all this, what are the pains that we're aware of? Or what pains do you think we could also see just because they think it's a good experience? It still might be 7 clicks when you look at it, realize it could be 2. So there's things to keep in mind along that when you identify all these pain points. It's important to step back, look at this from the outside. So then we have the end result. What do we get when we come back from all of this journey map? Well, first, we've identified personas, a point of view. We understand their hearts and their minds. So this persona part, let's back up just a little bit to tie some things together. So we've identified our objectives. We've identified personas, users, both internal and external, and we define our journey. We know how our users think and feel. We could come out of this and go, you know, I have an idea of a solution. Well, you can jump right into a design thinking workshop and you already have the personas defined also specifically for the problem scope you want to look into. Well, how great is that? You're not wasting a lot of effort doing from one methodology to another methodology to another methodology. A lot of these work together. A journey map can actually help define a scope for you to use in design thinking. And again, the result here, what is this big old sticker board that's all up in here? This process of journey mapping is a really it's a fun workshop where you use sticky notes. Everyone kind of comes into the process and puts them up into the little section of what they think and feel. And it's a collaborative effort. You work through this, you try to understand. And it's important to understand the process view that you are looking at is, you know, in a sense, a value stream. This is adding value into the system, into the business, and you're looking to increase and create awareness around those parts that you want to add additional value or reduce waste. You know, these processes here could help you identify a whole set of opportunity and challenges. Maybe coming out of this exercise, you've identified a roadmap, better yet, a vision to know where you'd like to be going and how you want to get there. So, you kind of look at it this way. So we come into this journey map and we identify 3 problems. Wow, we identify that our delivery system is ineffective. It goes through 5 systems because we identify there's 5 touch points in there. The user thinks it's great because, you know, they get their product, it's shipped relatively on time, and they seem it's fine. But we see a problem. We see that the fact that the delivery process is ineffective. We see that the person is really uncomfortable with this. I'm trying to find a product and I can't find it. I have to search 3 or 4 times. And then we realize, you know, how do they get in here? You know, our journey map maybe isn't really going to the farthest extent to the left. Maybe we need to start doing marketing campaigns to bring them to us. Okay, so during this journey map exercise, we identified 3 key things that we really could work on. Great. Roadmap, vision. We know what we want to do. Now we go to the next thing. Great. Now that we've identified these 3, great. What does that mean? What it means is this. We look at our pain points around the delivery system. We have to enter into 3 different systems. Entering into a system in a default manual way, that should trigger all the techie people going, sounds like RPA. Oh, so we have a point solution there. The customer experience around searching is really cumbersome and ineffective. Well, for those people wondering where content and searching and knowledge management, this should just be bringing all kinds of bells in your head. Oh, we know how to fix this. We can definitely achieve this. And then the upfront, well, maybe we need to have some marketing programs. Maybe we need to have a process that we're going to enhance the marketing program to help funnel them into our main website. we've come out with 3 initiatives. We bring them back to our business objectives of what we're trying to do: increase customer satisfaction, increase revenue. Well, the revenue, we're going to say right off the bat is, hey, revenue is about getting people in. We get more people in, we'll increase revenue. We'll worry about the cost later. Jack up the revenue, put money in the marketing, program 1. 2, this is delivery. These costs are just getting out of hand. So we RPA the delivery part, and we put that solution in place. Now our costs are down, revenue's up. Customers are now getting much happier, right? Instead of a standard delivery time of 3 to 5 days, it's 1 to 3 days. And they like the experience coming in. Now the change is we need to get them to buy more stuff. Remember that searching problem we talked about day 3, step 3? So now we dump in this whole other context around helping them find what they want and more. Okay, so now we've created additional revenue, we've decreased cost, and now we've increased the scope of revenue. While it's a fictitious example, that's a pretty great outcome. And it's, again, tied to business outcomes. The technology is the last conversation in here. The project that needs to be implemented is the same projects that we all know. We implement RPA. You know how to do all this. You determine the data coming in, the systems you want to work with. You define the interfaces. You program them, and you measure the results. Either you know what the results are coming in, as mentioned in the question earlier when asked about Ryan. Did you measure before and after? Yeah, you better. So again, we back all of this stuff up and we come to the end. The business objectives have been reached. We start with business goals and objectives. We do an identification of what goals and objectives tied to the value stream, the business process that we're looking to achieve. And then we know our customer. Remember, internal customers count too. And then we look how they impact and interact with our system. Then we have focused opportunities and we have solutions that we can deliver. And what you get is this nice big circle that kind of flows all around, that everyone likes to see circles. We know what we're doing. We get our goals, identify a problem, know our customer, and know their pain points, know their problems, know what we want to do. And we have focused opportunities, focused on what we want to do and what we want to achieve. And then when they're done, we go back. Did our strategic goals and objectives change? No. Probably because we were so successful before that they want to focus on different things. And you just circle around through this. So this is how it all the process comes together. Again, journey mapping is a way of doing identification, making sure that you're tying. There's a lot of topics that you can add into this. Design thinking and customer journey mapping have a lot of synergies in together. You identify a problem, like we said about delivery. Maybe we don't really know what the delivery problem is. We just know we have one. Then you run a design thinking workshop to take the problem, because design thinking, you scope a problem to know what we're going to talk about. We have a scoped of delivery problem. And then we just go through, come up with different ideas, thoughts, concepts of how we want to address it. And then now we have a focused thing to focus on and work on and deliver. So with all that, if you have any other questions, you know how to reach me. And if a lot of these concepts seem confusing or you'd like more detail, honestly, type into Google or whatever your favorite search engine is, any of these concepts, you will be more than happy with the wealth of information that exists publicly and readily available, including the IBM Garage site, which their information is public. And I've used that and used many others to help understand and deliver this content.
Thank you very much, Mike. I really like how you brought all these elements together. You've helped tie together our morning session, bringing in the technology from Kemper and the business learnings from Auto Owners Insurance and tying it all together. So thank you so much, Mike, for doing that. We are going to go to a break, but we certainly need to have one more song before we go to a short break. And so I'm going to ask Stella and Ian to come back and sing one more song about promises kept and promises broken. Stella and Ian. Come on in. We've been doing great so far. We haven't had one moment of silence. So. Stella and Ian, can you hear me? Let's see.
Tell you what, David, how about we go to a poll question while we get Stella and Ian back for our song? You want to do that?
Let's do that. I like your thinking.
So here's a poll question. Everybody, inviting you to come back up to your screens and to, because we're going to look at the results of this poll question at the end or after our break time here. But just want you to answer this question here. What is the scariest monster in automation? What's your biggest concern? Is it cost? Is it design and setup time? Is it change management? Is it the hybrid work model? So I'll open this poll question back up again in just a moment. But right now I'm hearing the lovely strummings of Stella and Ian. And how about we go back to them for a song?
Fantastic. Okay,
Right.
ladies and gentlemen, Stella and Ian.
You told me that I was like an angel. Told me I was fit to wear a crown. So that you could get a thrill, you put me on a pedestal and then you let me down. Let me down. You told me that I'd be wearing diamonds. I would have the smartest car in town. Made me think that I'm the top. Then you let the ladder drop. You know you let me down. Let me down. I walked along the rainbow. I clung to a star. You had me up in heaven. That's why I had to fall so far. I was even looking for college. I was measured for my wedding gown. That's how I got cynical. You put me on a pinnacle and then you let me down. Let me down. Oh, how you let me down. I walked along a rainbow. I clung on to a star. You had me up in heaven. That's why I had to fall so far. Oh, I was even looking for a college. I was measured for my wedding gown. That's how I got cynical. You put me on a pinnacle and then you let me down. Let me down. Oh, how you let me down.
Well, there's a broken promise right there. My goodness. Wow. Thank you both. Hang tight. We're going to see you again when we kick it off at the top of the hour. Well, absolutely. I wouldn't try to do an AIM event without an appearance by the president of AIM, Peggy Winton, who has agreed to do a public service announcement for us. She is in a leadership council meeting at the moment, and so couldn't join us live, but I'm very happy to see that she has contributed this piece.
Hi, everyone. It's Peggy Winton from AIM. We are delighted to be your host today, and we particularly want to thank our friends at IBM for co-hosting with us. I hope you've enjoyed the first part of the program. I'm sure you've learned a lot. I'm here now to share a data point from recent AIM research on this topic. Now, you know that we regularly tap into our extended AIM community to ask about your key business drivers when it comes to your pain points and how you're going to resolve those through some new techniques or new investment in technologies. 60% of you said that your primary target when it comes to process automation is production processes. Those are the ones that are usually repetitive. They are run again and again, typically using a standard operating procedure. That's where you're going to focus your automation efforts. And that's not too surprising because that's where the ultimate pain is, particularly as our organizations are having to expand from a focus on individual processes to much more of a broader customer-facing journey. That's hard. And this is where emerging technologies like robotic process automation, I know you've been hearing about RPA today. This is where RPA can play a really important role, not as a substitute for a broader business process management or a case management play, but in conjunction with them. You could almost say that RPA democratizes process automation tools because it allows the individual worker to automate pockets of manual tasks. We know that that still exists within those production processes. Remember this, ultimately, RPA is focused on task automation, and BPM and case management are focused on an overall process automation. All are very needed, but none will ultimately be sufficient by itself. So that's your Peggy Winton public service announcement for today. Enjoy the rest of the program.
And there you have it. So thank you so much, Peggy, and thank you to AIIM again for helping to produce this and put this on and bring in such a great audience for us. Stella and Ian, I want to tell you something. First, I want to know that you're there. It was a couple of decades ago, but I went to Radio City Music Hall and I saw Ella Fitzgerald and Joe Pass. And
wow.
yeah, I know. I got to see the legends. I got to see them do their thing, and it is making me very happy to have you here, bringing some of that spirit, of course, in your own way. So you've been playing songs for us about promises kept and promises broken. What have you got for us now to open up our second half?
We've got a little different one for you. This one is George Michael's Faith. Well, I guess it would be nice if I could touch your body. I know not everybody's got a body like you, but I gotta think twice before I give my heart away. And I know all the games you play, 'cause I play them too. Oh, I need some time off from that emotion. Time to pick my heart up off the floor. And when that love comes down without devotion, well, it takes a strong man, baby. But I'm showing you the door, 'cause I gotta have. Baby, I know your eyes can meet you, say, please, please, please don't go away. Said I'm giving you the blues. Maybe, oh, you mean every word you say. Can't help but think of yesterday and another who tied me down to another boy. For this river becomes an emotion before you throw my heart back on the floor. Oh, I reconsider my foolish notion. I need someone to hold me, but I wait for something more. Becomes an emotion before you throw my heart back on the floor. Oh, I reconsider my foolish
this notion. I need someone to hold me, but I'll wait for something more. Faith, I've gotta have faith. I've gotta have faith. I gotta have faith, faith, faith.
Michael. And that reminds us we do need to have faith that others will honor their promises. Oh, here I am trying to clunkily link it back into our theme. It was really fun to kick off our second half that way. And now I want to make sure that we can hear Ed Lynch coming in from the Toronto area. I'm in my basement here north of New York City. And Ed, where are you?
I'm in my basement in Toronto. Can you hear me, David?
I can hear you, and I'm sure I'll see you in just a second. There you are. You look fantastic. So let me introduce you properly, and we will get on our way here with our second half. Ed Lynch is the executive leader of the Digital Business Automation Unit at IBM. He's vice president, and he leads the offering management team driving towards a vision of this integrated automation platform that brings all of the elements together, which you'll hear about. And he's been driving a lot of the efforts to bring artificial intelligence, low code, machine learning, all of these new elements into the platform. And so with that, I will ask Ed to take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. And thank you to AIIM for having me. I'm pleased to be here, and I want to share in the next 15 or 20 minutes what IBM is doing in the area of bringing AI and automation to clients around the world. One message I want to leave with you, one takeaway that I want to plant right now, is the importance of data in all of this. Importance of data, both in order to guide decisions on what to automate, in order to gather information about what automations are working, what automations aren't working, and data which will become the foundation for the machine learning algorithms to learn. So let me start with an observation that was generated by a group in IBM called the Institute for Business Value. Institute for Business Value is a group in IBM that surveys and does analytics on information that they gather from C-level execs around the world. In this particular study, study was done just after COVID started. The 1,500 C-level execs were interviewed, and they were interviewed on various different aspects of the topic of automation. So think about the timing. The timing was right around when COVID hit and when automation was becoming more and more important. People were starting to work from home. What they discovered was that two top concerns or two top benefits that the C-level executives expected to get from automation. Number one was an improvement on customer journey. So our clients' clients and our clients' interaction with their clients. Second was the ability to manage the workforce. So one being a top line concern, one being a bottom line concern. Those were the two top findings of this study. Other findings are displayed on this, and the message from this screen should be every single aspect of work can benefit from automation. So not just front office, which is where RPA typically plays, but also department work, that repetitive chunk of work that departments do, and also cross-enterprise work. All of these different aspects of day-to-day work, these C-level executives expected to benefit from automation. And we delved a little bit deeper into intelligent automation, trying to categorize what the concerns were, where the opportunities were, et cetera. And we found typically that in the doing space, this is where automation provides its best benefit. But these C-level executives were also forward-looking and thinking beyond just the digitization and the benefits of doing the actual work, also reasoning, using the data that was captured to drive some of the thinking, to drive some of the informing, to drive some of the recommendations that go back to both the end users who are working and to the business managers who are managing the workforces. And then on the notion of engaging clients, major benefits in automation with respect to natural language interaction with clients, et cetera. So closed loop here, doing, reasoning, and engaging, all benefiting from automation, and particularly the application of AI and machine learning to automation. Let me give you a couple of examples. So first example is a bank in Canada. This is the Bank of Montreal. The Bank of Montreal created a service that they call Quick Pay. Quick Pay is a mechanism which uses the IBM Content Analyzer, part of the platform that I'm going to talk to you about for a second, where customers forward their emails to the Bank of Montreal, which contain e-statements for billing for utilities, as an example. And they do that, they forward an email, or they simply forward a photo of the invoice that they've received from the provider. All of this gets converted. The structured data gets extracted from either the email or from the PDF, the JPEG, and it gets converted into structured information, which then drives the Bank of Montreal process. What the Bank of Montreal found was 6 times faster processing as a result. So good benefit to the bottom line, and top line, meaning the customer satisfaction, 90% of their clients were ready to adopt this service, and the customer satisfaction increased quite significantly. Here's another example, client doing automation as well. Last one, ENN. ENN is a big energy company in China. Big energy company in China using RPA. We've heard a lot today about RPA. RPA driving the back-end processes which back-end chat interface. So natural language interaction with clients, robotics driving the manual tasks, and driving other automations behind the chat interface, all allowing for a far improved customer interaction with clients. As a result, the NPS, Net Promoter Score for ENN, the company went up. The cost of doing business with clients and interacting with clients went down. So what do you need in order to drive automation? Here's IBM's view. IBM's view is that you need a platform. You need a platform which does the digitization. You need a platform which captures operational data. So there's a piece at the bottom of this picture where you see operational intelligence. That, to me, is the key to moving this forward. It's the key because in that operational intelligence layer, you have everything that you need to know about what's happening at any given time during the operation of the business. It tracks what tasks are being executed. It tracks what processes are being executed, what decisions are being made, what steps in a case are being done, the actions in the content management system, structured to unstructured or unstructured to structured transformation of documents. All of that day-to-day, minute-to-minute, second-to-second, microsecond to microsecond data is captured. Operational data is captured in that operational intelligence layer. The platform needs engines to do the work. We talked before about doing and engaging and applying intelligence. You need the engines. Each of those engines tosses operational data into the operational data lake. And at the top, you have applications and you have digital workers. We all know what RPA is. We know what digital workers do. Digital workers become those proxies for humans as we execute day-to-day tasks. That's what we need in a platform. Most significant of all of these things is the data. The data informs the business about what's happening. The data can be dashboarded. The data can be shown, can be probed, can be drilled on, but the data also informs the machine learning algorithms which provide recommendations that then go back to the business manager or back to the individual knowledge workers. How do you realize the promise of automation? Well, you start with data. Any good manager knows that you start with facts. You base your decisions based on facts. The data informs you about what should be done, what should be automated, where the opportunities are for automation. That data, coupled with an automation platform, allow you to create this virtuous cycle of automation platform tosses data, data informs the business manager about what's next, what to automate next, what's working well, what's not working well. That automation platform then provides dashboarding and management mechanisms, which I'll talk about in just a second, to provide the business manager with a good, solid view of what's going on in the business and what's working and what's not working. All of that is how you get started and how you realize the promise of automation. The notion of managing with data and managing with dashboards is what we call operations management. Not a unique term, but it's a term that we've latched onto. It's a term that focuses on the business manager and the role of the business manager in managing the flow of work that happens in the front office and in the back office. So what do those business managers need to worry about? They need to worry about things like cost. They need to worry about quality, but they also need to worry about the health of the workforce. Who's doing well? Who is able to execute certain kinds of tasks? What kind of business opportunities are available? What kind of things can be optimized next? That's the roles, all of the various different things that we count on the business manager to do. And for that, you need a good, solid operations management platform. Operations management platform in IBM speak is a component of our platform called the Business Automation Insights. This Business Automation Insights starts with the data. It shows the business manager what's going on. It shows them in a very graphical way. And I'll show you that in just a minute when we get to the demo portion of the segment. But this is the center of the action. The Business Automation Insights is a sink for data. It has a data lake of operational data. The operational data has a well-defined schema. It has what is in essence a curated data lake factor. Those of you with data scientists on your team know that 80% of a data scientist's time is spent wrangling the data. Wrangling meaning sorting it, cutting it, making sure that there's cross-references tie, make sure that an individual element of the data is well known to sync with other elements of the data. They spend their time wrangling all the pieces so that the feature set, which gets provided to the algorithm, whether it's a neural net algorithm or a random forest algorithm or any other of the well-known machine learning algorithms, have a well-defined data set and a well-defined schema so that you can feed the model very quickly. All of that sits in the Business Automation Insights tool. The Business Automation Insights tool also renders dashboards. It surfaces information in visualizations, which you'll see in just a moment. Those visualizations become the main mechanism to inform the business manager, because human beings are very good at recognizing visual patterns, and visual patterns are exactly what dashboarding is all about. Now, a common rule of dashboarding and visualizations is that business managers don't really know what they want to see. They'll know it when they see it, but they don't know what it is that they're hunting for. So the ability to cut the data, the ability to visualize different portions of the data, all of those things become extremely important. And we need to provide the business manager with the tools that they need in order to visualize, in order to dig, in order to cut things to their heart's content. That's what the Business Automation Insights portion of this platform that we've been talking about, the operational intelligence layer of the platform, is all about. So what's in Business Automation's Insights? Business Automation Insights is a collection ground. It's a place for the collection of information. It's a place for preparation so that you can apply machine learning algorithms. The data is cut, it's correlated, all of that is pre-done. It's pre-done for you underneath the platform. It provides a mechanism to visualize. The visualization becomes something that informs the business manager on a minute-by-minute, hour-by-hour basis. They can see things moving live. They can cut. They have tools to be able to look at different aspects of the data so that when they finally lock it down, they have a dashboard that tells them really what's going on. Most importantly, though, Business Automation Insights tool enables AI. It's the mechanism where you have the curated data set exposed in a set of features, those set of features which tie into the machine learning algorithms. Machine learning algorithms either created by us, embedded in the various different elements of the platform, which I spoke about earlier, or machine learning algorithms that you and your data scientists build. You will benefit from having this data lake of operational data. So Business Automation Insights is about real-time monitoring, activity monitoring. It's about empowering the business manager in order to get their job done so that they can manage the workforce. And it's all about enabling, turning on that AI and machine learning capability. All of those things sit in the Business Automation Insights portion of the platform, but that doesn't draw away from the fact that you have engines which do task automation, process automation, case management, content management, decision management, unstructured to structured transformation. All of those pieces are required in order to really do business automation correctly. In my mind, the Automation Insights portion is the most important. And I want to show you this in action. What you're going to see in the next 5 minutes is a demonstration live. Well, live, it was taped, but it's live. It was done on a live server. This is not just a Camtasia. This is actually the real live piece of Automation Insights in action. So David, can you roll the demo for me, please?
So what we have here, what I just brought up within my screen, is our Business Performance Center. It's our first experience. When you first log in, this is what you're going to see, right? So the situation I'll be walking through is, one, this is connected to our Business Automation Workflow server, our workflow capability. There's a workflow hiring sample process that actually ships with it, and I'll walk through kind of how we can use that. But day one, you're going to get some samples of things you can do. And I'm looking at that. Well, I've been using this for a while. This is actually our test server with development. So it's running live. I've got a bunch of other things. So as we can go through, we have private dashboards and we have public dashboards within there. Let me do all dashboards. As you can see, private, public, etc. As I go through the top bar here, I can search for things. So if I was, again, interested in what's the hiring dashboards and scorecards I might have, I can search for that, and it looks across that as well. If I want to import, so for example, if we want to provide samples that you want to import, you have multiple environments you want to import and share dashboards across those environments, that's how you would do that. If you have an import, you would assume we have an export feature. We also have the ability to duplicate and copy. So if there's a public dashboard you're saying, hey, I really like that, I can start with that as my first experience. And I can also copy and paste from within a dashboard. So I can go to one dashboard. If I like a chart, I can copy that, go to my dashboard and paste that in. And I have that feature as well. So I'm going to focus on these two samples today. So let's just first walk in. This is a copy and paste of our out-of-the-box sample of just process dashboard. You can see you have several rich charting capabilities and visualizations. Simple bar charts, line charts, pie charts, you would assume. Here's a trend that kind of shows how my processes, numbers started, completed, so I can view from that. I can zoom in and out from different time ranges, etc. But again, this is looking at all my processes, and then I'll show you how you actually create these very quickly from there, so I can see my average, how many processes are starting by day, by type. Here, if I want to drill down, I can turn things on and off. I can see my number started, completed, at risk, etc. So some of those basic things that you would assume that you could have when doing process analysis that you have. And here's, like I said, you can copy here and then paste that into another one if I still want to reuse that. But let's go into an actual, working sample of an actual process. And again, this is built off of our hiring sample that we ship with. and I can go into here, and there may be some things that I'm interested in as a manager. I want to improve my overall hiring process, things I may care about. I want to care about, okay, show me how many hiring positions I have by location, maybe by city. I want to see how many positions I'm hiring for by type. Is this a full-time or part-time supplemental employees that we have there? And I want to look at how my processes are performing, right? If I'm in charge of this, if I'm a process owner, a business owner, I want to see, okay, what's my average, durations across time? Maybe I want to see of those, show me for my hiring process for all the tasks that make this up. So in this case, we have, find position, review, submit, send escalation. Where's the most time being spent from a weight perspective? What's the most time being spent from a working perspective? And I can kind of get that very, very quickly. Let me show you now how we can create something on the fly. So I may look at this and say, what, one of the things I want to know is how my hirings are by department, right? So I just click that new chart button, give it a name. I can choose what do I want? Do I just want a number, a metric? Is it something over time? And I'm going to do this one. I want to see how we're hiring by department over time. I can do KPIs, and I'll create another one of those to kind of show the differences between a KPI and a metric from there. So let's just go into this. So what you'll see is as I start making configuration changes, that'll be reflected over here. So I know that, one, make sure I'm checking the new process. So I'm actually working on my HR process, so that's correct. That's what I want to look at there. I want to do a group by. So I want to count first. I want to know how many I'm doing. I'm going to group this by department. So I just choose my department as my grouping. I can change my interval of how this is updated. I'm just going to leave this for now and hit apply and see how that looks. I'm necessarily not a big fan of that visualization. So let me switch that to see how that looks. And that looks a little bit nicer. And maybe I want to look at this from a daily perspective or weekly. Yeah, let's do that from there. Okay. I don't really have any filters I want to set from there, and I'm kind of good with that. And then just go back to my dashboard, and that goes here, and I can just move things around, and let's put that over here. And that looks great. And that's very simply and quickly, all of a sudden now I can see how many hirings I've got by department across the board from that perspective. Okay. Let's go and see how easy it is to create a KPI. Well, let's go into here. I'm going to choose a KPI. What's a good one? Let's look at, maybe I'm a manager and I have an HR manager and I have a target that I want to have so many hiring processes, and I'm constantly looking at new talent within the market. So I'm going to say new hires by month. Let's just look at that, and I choose my KPI there. I say create. Get different visualizations of KPIs we can have here. I like the gauge view. It's one of my personal favorites. Again, make sure I'm looking at my right source. I am. From there, I can then move on and say, what are my filters I need to set? Really don't want it there. Add a filter. And I want to say, I only want to look at those that were completed, right? So I don't want to know everything. That's all my processes. I have 172, but really, those that are completed. So I'm going to look at my state, which is the state of the process. Here, it's telling me that I need to fill this in, but I don't need to know the value. If I just click within that box, the system will look and tell you all the available values that are there within the repository that I can choose from. So in this case, I want to only look at those processes that are completed. I can hit apply. And we can see now that it went from 170 to 110 that are in the system, because it's actually going after the real data behind the scenes. Then I want to go to my visualization and say, I want to actually set my max there, hit apply, okay. And then I want to set some thresholds, right? I want to know when I'm doing good, when I'm doing bad, so that I can actually manage it and see if I'm hitting my targets from there. So I'm just going to create a threshold here and just call that, maybe 100, create a new one, 200. And I want to say, okay, this is, if I'm below, I'm doing poorly. If I'm, my good range, and then my, I'm doing really awesome and great. And maybe I want to change the colors from here, kind of our red, yellow, green stop light, stop and go light. From there, hit apply. And now I can see how that works. From that, go back to my dashboard. Here we go. And again, we can, not spend a lot of time wiggling things around, but you can kind of see how that is. And now I've got a real-time KPI. You can set your refresh intervals from that perspective of how quickly this refreshes at either a dashboard level or not. Some other things that you can do that are pretty handy is this little clock. If I want to make sure that I'm looking at all my data at the same time range, so this one's not by minute, this is not looking at the last week, last month, I may want that. But if I'm saying, I want to see all of my data and understand how my processes and my operations are performing, I can just set a global time frame and say, okay, for all of these, I want to set this range, and then all of this data will update according to, whatever that range is that I set there. I can also go in then and override that. If I say, that's great, but I want to override it, I can actually override it at the actual, dashboard level as well. Okay. There.
That you can drive the business. That operational data can be visualized through the techniques that were just shown in that demo. But that's one portion of the platform. So let's recap. I started talking about C-level execs. The C-level execs interviewed, they said customer journeys. Number one, improving customer journeys, which is essentially saying improve NPS, and workforce management. So top line, bottom line. You use AI and automation in order to do that. Where do you start? You start with the data. The data then coupled with the automation platform creates this virtuous cycle. Automation platform generates more data. Data informs you about what to do next. Start with task automation. Task automation is the simple, easy, low-hanging fruit. Then apply AI, then scale your automations. And finally, business operations management. The business operations management brings it all home to the business manager. So you as a chief operating officer know that the application of AI and automation will drive your business. And that's how we recommend that you start and how you, continue on your journey of AI and automation. So David, back to you.
Thank you, Ed. And we have a couple of minutes for questions. I see a couple coming into the Q&A chat function, which I'm hoping you guys keep using. But I've got one for you while I tee up some of the incoming ones. We heard this morning from Auto Owners Insurance running their applications on premises, and then we heard from Kemper Insurance running their applications in the Cloud Pak for Automation on AWS. What happens when you have both a cloud and an on-prem type application? Can you still get this data and do this kind of analysis?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. So the key point to remember is you choose where the operational data is going to live. If you choose to put it on-prem, fantastic. If you choose to put it on cloud, fantastic. The data itself, location of the data, that kind of decision is a one-time decision. You feed that data lake with Kafka pipes. And as long as the mechanisms that you have, whether it's on-prem or on cloud, have access to those Kafka pipes. You have Kafka pipes and you have what are called Flink jobs. Flink jobs do the aggregation, the analysis, the tying together of one piece to another. The Flink jobs operate wherever the data is. The Kafka pipes are the pipes that drive event data into the Flink jobs, which then gets deposited into the database. So you can have your automations executing anywhere as long as they have access to that Kafka pipe, which drives data into the database.
Wonderful. You answered that one. Thank you, Ed. It's funny, some of the questions coming in are actually for previous presenters. So that one I think we can.
I'm not going to be able to host.
Well, some of it has to do with change management, and that was a big topic in the first half, is how do you bring human beings along so that they accept these new solutions, that they adapt and they get excited about them. What's been your experience on that, Ed?
My experience is generally the pushback is fear of the unknown, and fear of the unknown is always tackled by education. You share, you update, you allow people to use the tools themselves so that that fear factor goes away. The fear factor generally gets exacerbated when the top, somebody high up in the business says, thou shalt. Thou shalt, plus, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means for me. I don't know what this means for my job, generates fear. And so the way to do it, the way to tackle it, is to share at all levels of the organization, share what the goal is, share what the business, the business outcome that's being sought, and then buy-in from the bottom so that those who are implementing, those who are driving the automations, those who are automating things see the benefit to themselves as opposed to see some, top-down mandate. Overcoming the fear in cultural change is always, the trickiest part. But change management and overcoming that fear through education and sharing and getting buy-in on the business outcome is the way to make all of these things happen.
Well, that's exactly what Ryan Dennings from Auto Insurers told us. Is they have blogs where they talk about their success. They have a newsletter. They invited people to come down and try the scanning, bring some documents and scan them before they went live so that everybody saw what was happening. And now he's got people knocking on the door saying, hey, we want to automate. And so there's a great example of what you just said. So thank you very much for kicking off our second half here, Ed, and sharing with us the importance of data and how AI and data work together to improve the business, improve operations, and we even got to see it in action. So pretty exciting. And I think it's a perfect segue to our next speaker. And I want to make sure we can hear and see you, James. James Taylor, come in.
Hey there. Good to be here.
There you are. So here you are. Let me introduce you properly. James Taylor runs Decision Management Solutions, an IBM business partner. He's the foremost author on decision management, which is positioned right in the middle of the AI evolution, as you will see. His book, Digital Decisioning, this is only his latest. He's quite an accomplished author on this topic, but this is a look at how to use digital decisions to realize the promise of automation. And in fact, James has a special offer for one lucky viewer today. James, you want to tell him what it is?
Sure, yeah. So what we like to do is we like to encourage people to ask questions. So if you ask a question, we'll pick from the people who ask us questions, and we will send a copy of my book out to you. So we'll manage the logistics afterwards. And it has to be a real question, no asking like, what color was David's hair or something like that. It has to be something like, about my topic, right? So that's the deal.
Excellent. So the first real question that comes in, we will get your contact information and you'll get a free copy of this book. Thank you, James. And now the stage is all yours.
All right. Well, thanks very much. I'm enjoying this session. And I want to talk about, as David said, how do we get real value from artificial intelligence? How does one go about that? But before I do, I want to talk about something really exciting. I want to talk about approvals. Now, you may be thinking, well, approvals aren't very exciting, but you've probably designed lots of approval processes. You're approving things for customers, for partners, for suppliers, for agents, as well as internal approval processes that affect you, budgets, expense reports, and so on. Every one of these processes has probably been carefully designed and implemented. Well, most of them have anyway. And I've got sort of bad news about these approval processes. Everybody hates them. Your customers hate the way you approve claims and the way you originate loans, and your suppliers hate the way you onboard suppliers and approve their paperwork so they can supply you. Your salespeople, your agents, they hate the way discounts are approved because they try to make the discount that will help them win the business. And you probably dislike the expense and budget approval processes as well. People don't like approval processes. Now, why don't they like approval processes? Well, the reason no one likes approval processes, is that approvals are not, in fact, processes. From the point of view of someone who wants something approved, an approval is a decision. Customers want your company to decide if you will pay their claim or originate their loan. Suppliers want you to decide if their paperwork is complete so they can be onboarded. Agents and salespeople want someone to decide that this discount can be approved so that they can win the business they're trying to win. And you want the company, your boss perhaps, to decide that your expenses are valid and that your budget should be approved. Decisions are not processes. In fact, your organization is awash in things that people think of as processes that are actually really decisions. So what? Does it matter that approvals are decisions and not processes? Why is this an important thread to follow when we're talking about machine learning and AI? Well, why are you investing in data? Why are you investing in machine learning, in AI, in predictive analytics, in data mining? What's driving that investment? Go ask people. And I've asked a lot of people this over the years, and what they all say is that they want to improve decision-making. Well, that's great. Just decision-making in general, or were you thinking of a specific decision? Because the reality is, if you're not thinking of a specific decision, you're probably not going to be able to improve it. And the problem is, if you can't find your decisions, if your decisions are hidden in a jungle of process tendrils, then you're not going to be able to improve them. You have to be able to identify that something is, in fact, a decision before you can use machine learning and AI to improve it. So this brings me to the sort of meat of the presentation here. So decisions matter. What decision you're going to make, how you are going to improve it with machine learning, these things matter. The ability to get value, business value from machine learning and from AI is going to be dependent on the extent to which you can apply it to make better decisions. And in fact, in particular, a certain kind of decision matters. Operational decisions matter. Decisions that are transactional in nature, high volume decisions, decisions you have to make over and over again, rapidly and at scale. Those operational decisions really matter when it comes to machine learning and AI, because those are the decisions that generate the data Ed was talking about. If you don't make a decision over and over again, you are unlikely to generate data about that decision that will enable you to build a machine learning algorithm. Similarly, if you make a decision more than once, if you make it over and over and over again, thousands of times a day, then even very small improvements multiply up to be big potential business value. Now, we've been working for years in this space, as David very nicely said, and one of the things we found after modeling and helping people improve thousands of business decisions is that one of the most important features in getting value from machine learning and AI is, in fact, to digitize these decisions, to not just think about how to apply machine learning and AI to the decision, but to think about how to embed it into a largely or partly automated decision, digitizing the decision-making itself as part of your overall digital strategy. So digital decisions matter in particular. In fact, there's a great comment in a Forrester paper. They said, one smarter automated decision can be worth millions in terms of customer acquisition, retention, or operational efficiency. This was in a great paper that the guys at Forrester wrote called The Dawn of Digital Decisioning. And in it they say, the speed, volume, and individuality of digital business operations demand automated, real-time decision-making. This is the essence of digital decisioning. This is the sort of pitch, if you like. You need to differentiate, to individuate your business. You need to do it at scale, and you need to support a variety of digital channels. You have to digitize your decision-making. So digital decisioning then is designed to deliver those kind of decisions so that your systems act intelligently on your behalf, that they make precise, consistent, real-time decisions at every touch point that your customers have. They apply machine learning and AI at scale. They operationalize it deeply in your transactional systems so that you can get the maximum business value from your machine learning investments. Now, one of the things David was very keen to make sure I knew when I started this presentation was to say that it's really important not just to tell people about something, but to give them some concrete tips they can take away, something they can go and say, great, I learned something from this presentation. So as I said, we've worked with clients all over the world to work on thousands of decisions. And so we have some best practices, some critical success factors we've discovered over the years. The first is to apply what we call decisions first design thinking. Design thinking, as you heard earlier, is a great technique. It's a powerful way to innovate in an organization. You can and should apply it specifically to your decision making. Don't try and improve your decision making by improving the whole process it's part of. Don't try and focus on the data or the machine learning. You have to focus on the decision. You have to think about the decision, identify the decision, and then use design thinking to improve it. The second step we found is that there's no one technology that's going to solve all of your digital decisioning problems. You have to mix and match a variety of technologies together. And I'm going to talk about that more in the next slide. So mix and match technology. Don't think there's going to be one technology you can buy that's going to solve all your problems. You've got to think about a collection of technologies, and you've got to put the business problem, the business decision, front and center. Then the third thing is not to go for a moonshot. Don't swing for the fences. Don't try and go for a huge one-time value proposition. Instead, focus on how you can get to continuous improvement. The real value of digital decisioning and indeed of machine learning and AI is that it enables you to continually get better and better at the way you make decisions. If you apply that mindset, that continuous improvement mindset, much more of a sort of Six Sigma kind of mindset, that's what's going to get you the most value. Let's drill into that second one a little bit. When we talk about mixing and matching technology, what exactly do I mean? Well, you think about your business. It runs on a set of applications, business processes defined in a BPM system, event-driven systems, packaged applications, mobile applications, and web properties, legacy applications. All of these different decisions do work, manage data in your environment. And you need to be able to deliver decisions to all of those systems. You need to be able to deliver what we call decision services, that is to say services in a service-oriented architecture that make business decisions, that then can deliver the right action, the appropriate advice to all these different channels. How do you build those decision services? Well, you're going to combine two really critical technologies, business rules and machine learning and AI. Business rules let you capture the regulatory environment, the policies and procedures, the best practices, the contracts you already have with customers so that you make decisions that are compliant and appropriate. Machine learning and AI help you inject what your data is telling you will work, that you will learn from new data sources so that you can make better, more precise, more targeted decisions. Now, IBM has great products for both of these. The Cloud Pak for Automation has IBM's Operational Decision Manager as well as the Automation Decision Services that really deliver on the business rules promise. And then obviously you've got Watson machine learning and the sort of the whole machine learning stack on that side as well. So you can bring these technologies together along with some others in different circumstances to deliver business decision making. And then you're going to gather data. Ed was talking about this with BAI, from all these different systems and processes, as well as from the decision itself. So you can say, here's how we made this decision using this machine learning algorithm. Here's what worked. Here's how we got value from it. Here's when it didn't work. How do we change it? How do we update it? Close the loop, rinse and repeat, creating a true continuous improvement cycle. Now, there's lots of good use cases for this. So for instance, you could think about cross-sell and upsell, so working with agents, whether they're in a call center or in person. We did one, for instance, injecting upsell and cross-sell offers directly into an agent's mobile application so that they could sell more to their customers. 98% of them started using it because it was an intelligent cross-sell and upsell. It never suggested stupid things. It always suggested something helpful. Millions of dollars in new revenue. You can think about things like claims or other kinds of complex business processes that exist to make a business decision. So you can automate claims. One client we worked with had completely digitized their environment. Digital data, digital content, digital process, 100% manual review of the claims. And so use digital decisioning to drive up to over 50 or so cycles, weekly cycles, driving that accept rate up to 50% straight through processing so that customers didn't have to wait for their money. And not all of these decisions are completely automated. Commercial underwriting, for instance, often involves automated adherence to regulatory environments and to policies, analytics and machine learning to assess risk, but there's still a human element. Someone has to go talk to the business owner, investigate and inspect the facility. Those things are still done by people, and so many digital decisioning systems integrate humans into that sort of more augmented kind of environment that David was talking about earlier. But bottom line, what these systems do over and over again is deliver tremendous customer experiences and capabilities that customers didn't even realize were possible. You can deliver tremendously exciting customer experiences once you start thinking about automating decision-making and start treating those decisions as opportunities for machine learning. So it's time for you to discover a new superpower. It's time for you to think about digital decisioning, to focus on business decisions, and to apply machine learning and AI to get the maximum possible value from your decisions. And with that, I'm going to give you back to David.
Well, we have time for questions. Thank you, James, for being succinct and to the point. And a couple of them came in. I think they might have come in without your wonderful offer, but Mark was the first one to submit a question, Mark. And so we'll deal with how to get Mark the book later. But I think it's a serious question. You tell me if it's serious or not. Do you approach digital decision processes in government differently than in private enterprises?
So no is the basic answer to that. I mean, the key difference we notice is that in a government focused situation, or indeed in a highly regulated industry, which often is very similar, the key difference is that there's more of a weight to the business rules side of the house and less of a weight to the machine learning and AI side of the house, because it's more important to be able to demonstrate compliance, show that you're complying with the regulations, than it is perhaps in other circumstances. So what we see is we go through the same exact process. We still go ahead and think about the decision and do design thinking and capture the subject matter expertise and build out the rules framework. We just see less opportunity for applying machine learning and AI. Obviously, you can use it for fraud and some of these things, but generally, that assessment's been done and written into the regulation, and you have to really just conform. So that's really the key difference there. It was a serious question. So.
All right. Well, you'll tell us how Mark can get his information to you, or I can, he can send it to me. But there are some other questions in here, so let's dig right into them. And one of them is a broader question, but about trusting the data. How do you know the data is good and don't have second guessing and other things about the data?
So we have a phrase we use. We have to say, you always have to work decisions first. Right? What we find is once you've articulated how you want to make the decision, it's a lot easier to tell if the data is good enough to support it. I get very irritated when people tell me, oh, my data is not good enough. And I'm like, to do what? You haven't told me what decision you're trying to make. We have done projects where literally the business needed a machine learning model that was accurate more than 50% of the time. Better than 50-50 was good enough, right? Well, the data was certainly good enough to do that, right? Unless you know what decision you are trying to make, you cannot say your data is not good enough, or you don't have enough data, or you can't build a model or anything else. You have to begin with the decision in mind. And we find once you do that, it's clear what data you need, how good it has to be, and you don't tend to get into second guessing. You get into second guessing when people don't really know how they want to make the decision. And so, well, give me this data. Well, that didn't really help. Give me this data instead. Well, that didn't really help. Give me this data. Okay, so now we're all using different data. We don't have a shared decision model. We don't understand how we're automating this. And then, yes, then the data becomes a real issue.
Marvelous. We've got a couple more good ones for you. This one's about transparency, which I think is a huge topic. Does digital decisioning guarantee transparency?
Absolutely. That's, in fact, one of the biggest drivers for most people. If you build digital decisioning systems using business rules technology, things like IBM's ODM, Operational Decision Manager, you get a very explicit definition of exactly how you made the decision. And you can log how every decision was made. So you can come back and say, well, how did I decide that I was going to say no to David and yes to James? Okay, well, here's how I decided to say no to David, and here's how I decided to say no to James. And I can be very clear about that, very transparent. You think about comparing that with trying to call up the people in the call center or the underwriters or whoever it was and say, hey, do you remember this guy, James? Why did you say yes to him when you said no to David? I don't know. Did I make notes? Oh, well, people sometimes make notes, but they mostly don't. So the great thing about business rules-based digital decisioning is exactly that. It's tremendously transparent, and you can demonstrate compliance with policies and regulations in a very effective way.
This is fun, James. I got one more for you. And this one's a pretty sophisticated question. So I'm interested in how can artificial intelligence and machine learning be applied to data debt when running legacy systems in parallel with a new system in development? Do you have an example of how this was done?
So generally what we encourage people to do is try and inject digital decisioning sort of in front of their legacy application. So most people have a legacy process, a legacy application with a lot of human review and everything else that's currently coping, right? And what they want to do is they want to start using AI and machine learning. So we would automate a decision, typically for a relatively small percentage of transactions. So that example I gave of claims, the first version of that system only auto-approved 8% of the claims, the 8% that were absolutely clear what they were going to do. And then gradually they got smarter about it. And so the decision service sitting in front of the legacy application basically routed more and more of the claims past the old legacy process and directly to an outcome. And once you start applying that mindset, then you're not trying to find the perfect machine learning model. You're trying to find a machine learning model or an AI algorithm that will enable you to increase that percentage just a little bit. Oh, well, if I could just tell that. We play this game called the if only game. If only I knew this, if only I knew that, if only I could tell this, right? And you can start predicting those things, and then you can start to gradually improve the results. So that's what we would always advise people to do. Never go for a big bang replacement. Never attempt to turn the old one off and replace it with a new one. Never attempt to do a single big AI experience. Always focus on putting a new decision in front of the old system and gradually, systematically improving it until you have enough coverage in the new system that you can rip that stuff out of the old legacy platform.
Marvelous. Teresa's getting Mark's information for you. So thank you very much, James, for joining us today, bringing your clarity and really raising the game here. So thank you so much. And my head is spinning now. My head is spinning with all of these concepts. And so I think the best thing to do is hear from Stella and Ian with another song about promises kept or broken. What do you got for us?
Blue skies.
Oh, nice.
Blue skies shining on me, nothing but blue skies, all I see. Bluebirds singing their song, nothing but bluebirds all day long. Never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the day is hurrying by, when you're in love, by they fly. Oh, blue, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now on. Never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the days are hurrying by, when you're in love, how they fly. Oh, blue days, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies. Those blue skies, nothing but blue skies from now on.
Sorry. That's exciting. I love that. I love the jazzy endings. It's just really sweet. And I'm glad we got a positive song, not just an angry, broken promises song. So that's wonderful. Cool. Well, we hope to see you again at the end. If we're staying on time, we would love to have a big encore from you. So, and that one we're going to let you pick. So sit tight a little bit longer, and we will continue along as we have been following a framework today of looking at companies that have digitized and automated processes first. Then we've looked at adding artificial intelligence, machine learning, other components of intelligence. And then we said, now we're ready to think about augmenting the workforce with robots, with digital workers, with all kinds of new things that are just still emerging. And to help us understand that new world of man and machine working together, I want to ask if Kate O'Neill can come in, if I can hear you, Kate.
Hello, human. Can you hear me?
There you are. Wonderful, wonderful to hear you. So what do you think? We had a nice song there. Do you feel like that's a nice setup for you?
I love it. I love the optimism. I'm all about it.
Absolutely. So Kate O'Neill has led innovations across technology, marketing, and operations for more than 20 years in companies from startups to Fortune 500s. Among her prior achievements, she's created the first content management role at Netflix, developed Toshiba, America's first intranet, led cutting-edge online optimization work at magazines.com, and was founder and CEO of MetaMarketer, a first-of-its-kind analytics and digital strategy agency. Her insights have been featured in outlets like Wired, and she has appeared as an expert commentator on NPR, BBC World News, and other media. Companies such as Google, Etsy, Cisco, and more look to Kate for optimism about the role of technology in the world, along with a firm reality check. She's been named to the 2020 Thinkers 50 Radar, a global ranking of top management thinkers. Kate's most recent book is Tech Humanist: How You Can Make Technology Better for Business and Better for Humans. And she's here to help us do just that. And you can see how she fits into our thesis. So thank you. Please welcome Kate O'Neill.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, there's a funny thing about the way we talk about the future of work. What I've noticed is this: the discussions about the future of work have mostly to do with employment, from a very employer-centered lens, right? What are the roles and what are the kind of benefits that people will expect? And how will work groups function across distributed locations with increasingly automated components and so on? Meanwhile, the discussions about the future of jobs are driven by individuals rather than companies, and they express very different, very human anxieties about earning a living and providing for oneself and one's family and that sort of thing. Like, what people tend to wonder, what might we each be doing in 5, 10, 20 years, and what skills do we need to compete with an increasingly global, not to mention increasingly automated workforce? I think mostly it comes down to, how can we ensure that robots won't take our jobs, right? Or if they do, how can we ensure that billions of people won't be left to face homelessness and hunger? And I think there's also this question that's in there that's like, we know it sounds bananas, but we kind of have to ask it. Like, how can we make sure we won't end up as servants to robots or something like that? Like, I like to think that the robots are going to be friendlier than that, but you know, we never know. We never know. So it no longer sounds alarmist to say that at least some parts of our jobs are probably going to be displaced or replaced by automation or cognitive computing. And as many, depending on which forecast you consult, as many as half of job categories risk complete replacement and displacement. So we know there are going to be impacts on employment, as well as on production and economy and efficiencies of scale and innovation. We just don't know what any of that really looks like yet. So as always, we can get a sense of the future by looking at the past and where it leads us. So under decades of increasing pressure from shareholders and competitors in an ever more global marketplace, companies have tended to pursue greater profits and greater growth by continually investing in more efficient methods of achieving results. So if that has led to, say, offshoring to regions where costs of living is significantly lower so the company can pay significantly less for wages, the thought has traditionally been, so be it. And if that now points to subsidizing or replacing huge chunks of human labor with robots and other automation, the mindset again suggests, so be it. So that's starting to sound like a pretty doom and gloom forecast for human workers, right? Well, maybe, but not so fast. Because one thing that complicates that narrative is a trend best characterized by, in August 2019, when Business Roundtable put out a statement saying that the purpose of a company is not just to make a profit, but rather that companies share a fundamental commitment to all of their stakeholders. which is a position that I've argued for some time. And another thing, that offshoring trend of the last 10 to 15 years or more is likely itself to be substantially reshaped by automation in the next 3 to 5, let's say. And in that case, many of these, what are largely call centers, will be augmented by increasingly automated systems. And what happens then is that the opportunity shifts. Innovative companies will figure out how to integrate human call specialists and supervisors into an increasingly automated mix. And so then the work that falls to humans is going to increasingly be the tasks that requires emotional agility and strong language and communication skills. It's a complex picture, but it's important to note that adding automation to the workforce doesn't necessarily mean human jobs become eliminated. It means machines will continue to augment human jobs, like we're talking about today, augmentation, as they've done ever since there have been machines, whether that were drills or calculators or mainframes or whatever. And granted, it would be intellectually dishonest not to admit that the scale here is very different. But it's true that, and it is true that the rapidly growing capabilities of automation make it possible to displace and replace the tasks of human workers increasingly. But the essence of the equation is still this. Machines are built to take on tasks, whether for efficiency or productivity or accuracy or for safety, and the set of jobs that we do changes as a result. So the main impact of automation and robots is augmentation, right, of jobs, of the workforce, and the workplace too. So in other words, the overall direction of the concerns people feel about the future is totally reasonable, but the reality is more nuanced than robots are taking our jobs, since we know that as emerging technology augments human jobs, it will also create new and sometimes more interesting human work and human jobs. The last point is something that I don't think we talk about often enough, and I think it's because it's hard for people to envision what those jobs are. So how can we help humans anticipate the jobs and prepare for them and adapt to them when neither they nor we, in many cases, can even see what they are yet? Well, it is for sure going to take new skills in new combinations, but they're not all totally mysterious. As we look ahead in the relatively near term, one thing is clear. There's going to be a need for emerging skills in the workplace for managing combined teams of humans and functionally machines. So let's say the future, by the way, I have a fun little graphic of that because I love this image. We're not going to be managing robot workers looking at cats, but that's going to be a fun image to think of. So let's say that the future of work from a business standpoint is automation and robots and algorithmic optimization, and that human involvement is tuning, improving, and aligning. So what does that look like in practice? It's going to mean using some very human skills that all of us already have to some degree. And if we look at work as a marketplace not just of jobs to be done, but of value to be added, it becomes a little clearer where humans have a promising future. After all, jobs to be done are identifiable, discrete units of labor that can be executed by anyone or anything. So we can expect those to be easily automated, right? But the judgment it takes to size up a situation and break it down into its component tasks is often more complex, more subjective, and more nuanced. And those traits are, for the time being, more in line with human capabilities than machine. And there's arguably always more value that can be added to a function, service, product, or anything by imbuing it with meaning, which is, again, something humans are right now better poised to do than machines. So let me let you in on a little secret, because at its core, what I research, write about, and speak about looks like technology, but it's really secretly about the future of human meaning. Like what makes humans human, and what do we need from our surroundings and from our activities and from our interactions with each other in order to feel a sense of purpose and connectedness. And I would argue that meaning seeking and meaning making are two of the most human traits of all. So meaning, as humans conceive of it, happens at various levels. There's sort of a base layer. We can think about semantics, and that is how we communicate meaning through language. At the most macro, big picture level, we can think about cosmic and existential meaning, like the big, timeless, universal questions of what it's all about and why are we here, those sorts of things. There's a whole lot in between those ends of the meaning spectrum, like relevance, significance, pattern finding, purpose, and truth. What's interesting to me, though, is that meaning at any level is always about what matters. And here's an interesting thing about innovation. It is always about what is going to matter. So now we have two lenses that we can look at our work through and to look at the value of our contribution to work through. What is meaningful and what is innovative? What matters and what is going to matter? That can help us understand how to add more human value to every bit of work we do, value that machines so far cannot simulate. So sometimes people imagine a future where humans don't have to work for money, or at least where no humans are doing routine, mundane, or meaningless jobs for money. And that's admittedly an appealing science fantasy. But jobs also mean more to humans than money. A job has historically been about, in part, your identity and dignity and accomplishment and achievement. In other words, humans have traditionally derived tremendous meaning from work. So this may sound a bit shocking, but bear with me. What matters in the long distant view of the future is not so much that humans do labor per se, but that what matters is that humans have the opportunity and the resources for meaningful experiences, whether we derive them from work or not. So of course we need to take a little detour at some point, and now is as good a time as any, because COVID-19 has introduced some new wrinkles into this whole discussion. So as we've discussed, there's a difference between the future of work and the future of jobs, right? There's also a difference between the future of work and the future of the workplace. There's the workplace, which is wherever you are currently working, like maybe at home or your kitchen table, your sofa, your bed, I'm not judging, wherever. There's also the more official workplace, which is understood to be the center of the work, the headquarters, the office, the campus, what have you. And that workplace has a whole new set of requirements thanks to the pandemic, related to its ability to provide for teams that need to be together, to keep people safe and monitor their safety, to facilitate efficiency so that people may be able to, say, show up for a meeting, get that meeting done, and leave, and reduce their time of exposure to one another. So clearly COVID has forced big changes around remote and distributed work, but it's also been forcing interesting discussions about what is essential work. And it isn't necessarily the stuff that can be done remotely or in distributed teams, right? It isn't necessarily so-called knowledge work. For example, janitorial and other cleaning jobs become critical during a pandemic, and only some of these can be entrusted to, say, robotic systems at this point. So the larger lesson here is that the pandemic is one form of exponential change that has affected us all and is reshaping the workforce and the workplace. But collectively, we face several other kinds of exponential change: climate change, AI and other emerging technologies, and the fallout of geopolitical upheavals. And they're all happening in combination with each of these other things. So it's critical that we think in an integrative way, humanity-centric, to be able to build effective workplaces, businesses, and careers to align with the future that is emerging. So one concern I have when I think about exponential change is that as experiences become increasingly automated and are often selected for automation by how mundane they are, that we will be increasingly surrounded by automated, mundane, and meaningless experiences. So even if we're not building anything vast or potentially culture-changing, it's still important that we now, in the early stages of automating any human experience, encode them with all the human values we can. By the way, if you're not aware, you need to be aware that many algorithmic and automated experiences are known and understood to be built with the biases of their builders. So when I say encode them with all the human values we can, I also mean with all the enlightenment, all the egalitarianism, all the equity, and all the evolved thinking we can. So knowing all this about everything we've just discussed, how can companies build a better workplace for humans to thrive in and for technology to bring efficiency and scale to? Well, it starts with purpose, strategic organizational purpose. Purpose, of course, is a form of meaning. So it's a way to make sure we have a human-centric view of what matters in our work and our workplace. Purpose should match your values and your priorities and your brand and culture and even the data model and technology you deploy to support the organization. I call that human-centric digital transformation. It's a mouthful, I know, but I call it that because digital transformation, as we mostly talk about it, is fundamentally primarily about data transformation. And the data in business is largely derived from people, from what people want and need and the behavior they exhibit, the relationships they cultivate, and so on. So it seems only fair And it only stands to reason that as we optimize our processes around the efficient handling of that data and optimize our business models around more and more profitable decisions informed by that data, that we do so in a way that honors and respects the human beings whose data we're building upon. And that, by the way, includes employees. So really and truly, in terms of tracking performance, humans shouldn't be measured at all. We should be evaluated on performance according to values, not efficiency of output, because in general, efficiency is for processes. When it comes to people, we should be trying to make them more effective, more impactful, and help them have more meaningful output. What you may notice I'm saying is that businesses need new skills too. So that means hire and promote people who can adapt. Organizations need adaptability now more than almost anything. And they also need people who have the creative vision to be able to spot undeveloped talent that can be adapted and cultivated, fit it into the emerging openings. Encourage good judgment up and down and across the organization. And for all our sake, please hire and promote people who can see the humanity in data and can make empathetic decisions about the humans who will be using technologies. And finally, there's the responsibility we each have as individuals to ourselves. So you know what skills we need to prepare ourselves for jobs we don't even know exist yet, those futuristic cutting-edge skills we need for those jobs? It's things like good judgment, cooperation, delegation, organization, project management, all those soft skills, which is another way of saying human skills. There are some other things too, though. We need to develop digital literacy, media literacy, and an overall awareness and familiarity with algorithmic systems. We need to get curious about why we see the content we see in our social media and our search results, for example. And it doesn't hurt to develop general familiarity with tech. In any case, our emphasis should be on learning how we learn best. And the more you learn about any of the things I just mentioned out of your own curiosity, the better positioned you will be to adapt to the changes the future brings. Maybe not in your own job, because the specific things you learn may never directly apply to your job at all, but they'll help you adapt to everything that is changing in the world around you. What's important is that we try to create a future of work and jobs and workplaces that promote the efficiency of machines, sure, yes, but also the best and most meaningful characteristics of humanity, like compassion, understanding context, and using good judgment. Remember, we're facing multiple, simultaneous, exponential changes from a variety of sources. It's bigger than any of us, so we all have to be in this together. And the more we align business incentives and human values, the better chance that we will, rather than accidentally surrounding ourselves with automated meaninglessness at scale, that we can instead build the meaningful experiences of the future in our jobs and beyond our jobs. Thank you. Now back to you, David.
Wow, thank you so much to think about, and thank you for bringing it to the meaningful, which is really, as you say, the whole purpose of ourselves here on the planet. So thank you for really stripping away all of the noise and nonsense and making it human and bringing a wonderful spirit to today's event. And here's your book. I have a picture of it up here, and it's easy to find on Amazon. And I do hope our viewers will go and read you. And are you working on something new that we can look forward to? What's coming up?
Yeah, well, right now I'm hosting a weekly live show called the Tech Humanist Show and bringing in a lot of experts every week. And from those discussions, I am actually forming the body of research that will go into my next book. So stay tuned.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. And I think it's a good time, I think, to segue to an actual sort of example of robotic process automation. And so I'm going to ask if Zach Silverstein is nearby. Can we hear you, Zach?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm so happy to hear your voice. You know, it was July of this year that IBM announced the acquisition of WDG Automation and RPA, robotic process automation, a vendor actually from Brazil. Prior to that, we had open and wonderful connections to many of the robotic process automation players, but I know IBM really wanted to integrate it into its automation platform and needed to actually be able to do that. And so WDG was made the winner of the sweepstakes, and Zach is one of the leaders here at IBM that has taken on this wonderful challenge of bringing it out to the world. So, Zach, I'm very happy that you're here to share with us what it can do, and I'm going to say, take it away and tell us what we need to know. We went quiet there, Zach. So if you can hear me, try refreshing your browser. We have found that's what happened to Stella and Ian a second ago, and then it worked. After that buildup.
Joys of all the little troubleshooting we have to go through for this.
It is a miracle, though, that we've had people from all over North America, and we've gone pretty seamlessly from one to the other. Zach, did you refresh your browser? Because we lost you there for a second. All righty. We will get Zach back here. And Christian Finnegan, I don't mean to startle you, but we may want to move on to you, and then we'll see if we can get Zach to close us out. So, Christian Finnegan, are you there? Oh, good. This is fun. Hey, Zach's coming back in. I really liked, so I'm going to be optimistic about Zach. I really liked his, I like Katie O'Neill talking to us about finding meaning. I wrote down meaning in innovation. Meaning is what matters, and innovation is what's going to matter. And to see it that way, I think it's kind of interesting. So I found a lot of good things in that. Zach, are you back? I can see that you're working your way back. I can see that you're trying to come in. Hey, thank you, everybody, for spending some time with us. I hope you like how this unfolded. And if you, we didn't get to all the questions for James Taylor, but we will forward them to James, and he has said that he would answer them one by one directly with you. So fear not, we shall do that. Here I am vamping another second. Oh, I'm hearing something. Zach?
Yes, I'm back. I don't know what happened, but I am here.
All right, good. Well, it's once every event it happens, and it happened to you. So here we go. What is your shirt? So. What does your shirt say? I love what?
I heart AI.
So,
IBM AI shirt, right? Got to represent.
Well done. Thank you. Well, thanks for joining us, and back to you.
Excellent. Yes, I will be quick to make up for some of the lost time here. So I want to talk to you all a little bit about how we can augment the workforce with RPA, specifically talk a little bit about this really cool tool that I'm working on, right? This WDG automation, and how we can bundle that up and really augment that workforce with RPA, how we can bring it at a tactical level to the citizen developers, right? To the users, to the end users, and how we can really automate that workforce. So for the presentation today, I do want to hit on a couple key points we have here today, and that's going to be the concept of the citizen developer and the concept of white box AI systems, right? We're going to demo these concepts. You'll see a demo here in a couple minutes where we walk through the tool, where we go through how the end user will be able to leverage these components, how anyone with a technical inclination will be able to pick up a easy to use RPA tool and be able to implement those technical leaps, those automations for everyone, right? And not just implement them, but really how we can augment that with AI and leverage the everyday user to pull AI, right? You don't need to, have a doctorate in the space to leverage this at the tactical level, but all you need is, that interest and the ability to have a platform that enables that. So we're going to touch on a couple key components here. I'll start off by mentioning ease of use. And this is the most important tool for any RPA vendor, right? You need to have a very easy to use platform to drive the citizen developer. And the concept of a citizen developer is going to be, the end user who's able to be, empowered by the software to build the automations they need for the end results they need and be able to distribute that throughout the enterprise. So we really want to hit on ease of use, right? It's important to have a low-code interface. It's important to have wizards to help users out, right? To have, easy to understand consumable formats of the automation. Along with the tool, we do mention, a ton of integration points. How can we make this easier for the people leveraging the tool? How can we make this as drag and droppable as possible? We don't want you writing hundreds of lines of custom code to automate your end result, because that's not going to allow the workforce to be augmented, right? It's not scalable. It's not easily handleable. And the third component that we really want to touch on is how can we leverage AI with the end users? How can I, as not an AI expert, pull in those kinds of functionalities? How can I implement them? How can I see the value of them? And most importantly, how can I trust them? So it's not just about bringing in AI and bringing in chatbots and intelligent voice response, but how can I white box it? How can I feel that I can trust the end results of those automations? How can I understand what is going on? And then finally, when you augment a workforce, you can't augment just one person. You need that ability to scale. And with our presentation today, we'll touch a little bit on some of the scalability of the applications. But most importantly, we want to point out that this platform provides the ability to scale easily and offer this easily, where you don't have one AI user who is your focal point, who is your gridlock when you're trying to move these automations forward. So with that, I think I want to hop into our technical demo and really showcase how we can see the components. But before I do that, I have a little slide here that shows what some of that hybrid or that easy to use interface looks like, right? This is a understandable interface. We see on the left here, we have a couple of the key driving points, right? Natural language extractors, white box AI systems that we can train as users, that we're not putting a large question mark on the end result. Out of the box machine learning algorithms that we can leverage for OCR and content processing. These are the drivers that, businesses need to take those steps towards automating their workforce and towards implementing it, but they need to have control over them. And this platform offers a very easy to use interface. What you see here on the left are a lot of drag and drop capabilities. We see Excel trained knowledge bases that our AI engine operates off of, very easy to use design time environments, and ultimately very easy to use tooling for any of those users, whether you are a business user who has a light interest in technology, or you are heads down technical person who all you do is develop all day. Both of those people can work seamlessly together in the tool and leverage the AI for the end results that we need. So with that, let's see if we can hop into this demo here.
All right, everyone. So for this demo, we're going to go over a couple core components of WDG automation. We're going to capture the recorder. We're going to capture the AI chatbot scenario. We're going to talk a little bit about how we interact with a number of different file formats or application formats, including a Java legacy jar, as well as an Excel spreadsheet. So let's get started here with our demo. So here is the example of the AIIM chatbot that we've created here. And we leveraged WDG's native studio to develop this chatbot. It is a very easy to use development and design time view and application, where we're able to input values and use the pre-built wizard to assist us in populating the application and the automation in the manners we choose. So let's go ahead and see what this bot looks like. So here our bot is starting out. or launching it via our studio, we can see that a chat instance is created. Now, behind the scenes, there is some latency right here because we are working off of a development environment, but this studio is retrieving a knowledge base. That knowledge base populates some questions. Hi, welcome to the AIIM chatbot. We're here to help you submit new customer records in a legacy application. What can I help you with? And we will say, I need to submit 2 records, one for Zach Silverstein of Automation Corp, and another for Ryan Sparks of Acme Co. So we'll go ahead and send that to our bot. Now our bot captures that. It understands that we're submitting multiple records, opens up our Java application, and what you'll see here is it takes a moment and then it's going to start writing our values into this Java application. Submits that, then it hits submit here. Then our application is doing some things in the back end, which is updating an Excel spreadsheet. It posts the case numbers for each of those 2 submitted records. After that, our bot finishes. Now that our bot has finished, I want to talk a little bit about what we see on screen, our development environment. So, within our development environment, we see our very simple drag and drop commands that we've placed within our script, our WAL file. And we can see that these drag and drop commands utilize a wizard type input format where we can just provide whatever values are necessary, and our script will auto recognize the values and associate them to the needed component that is working on the underlying system. We take a couple actions such as extracting named entities using our AI system, opening Excel files, inserting data tables into those Excel files, and related application logic. So let's talk a little bit about our AI components within our toolbox. So within the toolbox, there are a lot of different commands, over 600 of them. A couple of them I do want to point out are some of our AI ones, such as executing our scripts, executing rules, fuzzy logic, and classification. Now, extending that is our AI chatbot commands. Now, our AI chatbots are generally understood to be IVAs, intelligent virtual assistants. Now, where WDG kind of puts their own spin on the game is by not only leveraging these chatbots as Facebook Messenger chatbots or URLs that expose the chatbots, but it also allows us to expose these chats via IVR systems. IVR being intelligent voice response. Now, intelligent voice response essentially exposes the chatbot. Instead of inputting our values into a text field, we're provided a phone number that we can call, put in some information, and our chatbot deals with it through the speech-to-text capabilities. I do also want to point out, once again, those natural language extractors, such as the ones we leveraged in our bot here, such as an extractor for people and organizations, have a lot of premium built-in extractors to make life a lot easier for implementing AI at a tactical level. Now, if we wanted to actually see how the underlying chatbot is running, they use a system called knowledge base. Now, a knowledge base is a trainable format. You can see here is our AIIM knowledge base. We can provide inputs and train the system. For instance, I could say I need to submit 5 records for new customers. So I'll put in that information, and we can see that it processes it, and it automatically recognizes it. That's submitting multiple records. We can see a couple of the text that we've put in to train our system. We can say, hey, this is great. This is correct. I want to continue to train it. So I'll just select that submitting multiple records improves the score. We can retrain a model as simple as just a few clicks. Now, the underlying knowledge base of this application is not only manipulated through the studio, but we can also manipulate and modify it through an easy-to-use Excel-type interface, where you simply provide questions, answers, contexts, and tags that we need to extract, and our system learns these and can reference these later on. Now, the last component I do want to talk a little bit about is the easy-to-use recorder that we use in development time to make our life easier. So let me go ahead and start up the recorder. And I'll point out that we have a lot of different capabilities here. We have Windows Recorder, Terminal, SAP. There also is a web recorder. And our recorder natively integrates with a number of different files, Java jar files, C# applications, so on and so forth. All we have to do is hold our left control key over whatever component on those applications we want to integrate with. We'll see a nice little box appear. We simply select the action we want to take for that box. We click the related item that we want to identify it via. In this way, I want to capture it via the XPath. We can see that it is able to automatically reference that component and put in whatever value I want. Maybe it's a hard-coded value, maybe it's a dynamic value. We'll put it in, I'll save it, and we can see the bot automatically writes that. Now, whenever we close out the recorder, that command is automatically written and appended to our chatbot or to our automation in general. We can leverage that very easy-to-use recorder for a number of different manners.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching that. You know, long story short, what we want to tell the story of is when augmenting your workforce, it's incredibly important that you give them the tools necessary to leverage their, you know, their knowledge skills to help automate themselves. And by allowing that citizen developer to leverage a easy to use platform, you can really increase the output. You can really you know, create some awesome things and have them create awesome things that they know will directly influence them, make their lives easier, and really help them take the next step as individuals in the automation journey. So, you know, I think that learning by doing it is the best way possible. And we got this really exciting software that has that super low barrier to entry. And I certainly encourage everyone to check it out. It's a lot of fun to use as an end user. And I know I've personally, you know, automated a lot of things for myself as well through it. So, yeah, thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you, Zach. Thank you so much for showing us the new thing, and the potential's amazing. And creating a chatbot, that's a fun application for sure. Hey, so wow, we've had quite a time. We've had a ride, and here we are towards the end of our 4-hour extravaganza today. Christian Finnegan, are you nearby? Testing 1, 2. Do refresh your browser. Christian Finnegan. I see. Okay. That's how it works.
Well, David, we won't leave you out here alone, waiting for Christian to get back online here.
That's funny. Well, I think, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. I refreshed. I feel refreshed. That's the important thing.
Well, I feel relieved. Listen, hello. So are you scared yet, Christian? Or what do you think about what you've seen here today?
Well, I mean, I will say, you know, I hear a lot of very happy talk about AI and robotics and things like that. And I don't mean to be a skeptic, but we are going to be in a lot of trouble when robots figure out how to check off that I am not a robot box. Feels like a very thin line of defense to me.
Yeah, when they can read a CAPTCHA. Yeah, we're in trouble. Well, look, thank you so much. As I said a couple of times today, 2020 has been a rough one. We need to laugh. We're so glad that you're going to bring us some perspectives that are a little bit different than we've heard all day, and just give us a reward for hanging out together and going on this journey. So let me introduce you properly, and then we'd love to hear what you have to share with us. It is great to see you. More than 20 years ago, Christian and I shared some stages in New York, and I have really been very pleased to see him become quite successful. He was in the Chappelle Show, which is, of course, kind of legendary now. He played Martin on the popular syndicated sitcom Are We There Yet? and he's been on Countdown with Keith Olbermann quite a bit, talking about all kinds of different things around politics and television, and has really made a name for himself. He has a number of specials, and his most recent one is called 60% Joking, which you can easily find if you search on it. And he's been on Conan, The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, but also The Late Late Show with James Corden, and The Today Show, and I could go on. And now he's on the AIIM show. So thank you so much, Christian. It's all yours.
Pleasure's mine. Oh, well, thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here with you all here at the end of all things. I know Zoom in a comedy in a Zoom setting is maybe a little daunting for some people. How would you do stand-up comedy without an audience? Well, rest assured, I've been doing stand-up comedy for over 20 years, and I am very used to telling jokes and hearing no laughter. So, advantage moi. Fun year, 2020, wouldn't you say? You know, I will admit that I maybe didn't take COVID as seriously as I should have at first. I guess it's just because I've lived in New York City for 30 years now, so I just sort of assumed I was already immune to everything. Just all those years licking subway poles for nothing. I started taking it seriously around early March when I started receiving emails from every company I have ever purchased anything from to inform me of their coronavirus preparedness plans. You know, some of them was just, most of it was just sort of basic boilerplate, like from now on, we're going to clean our stores. Okay. Kind of thought that was always on the agenda. Thanks. I know I started taking it seriously when I got one of those emails from Petco. You know, the pet emporium, Petco, because it was very dry. And I took that as a red flag, because you get an email from a pet store, you expect it to be in that sort of fun pet store vernacular. Like, I wanted it to be like, this coronavirus is rough. Or, you know, due to the ongoing catastrophe, we'll be putting our stores on pause. But no, it's very, very dry. Been having to make some adjustments over the course of 2020. Carrying around an extra 30 pounds of grade A quarantine fat. Anybody else? Feeling good? Hubba hubba, ladies. I genuinely don't know how it happened, because I have spent the last 6 months on one of those nutritional programs. I don't know if anyone else has tried the existential panic diet. Oh, it is the best. You have to try it. It's so easy. What you do is you only eat. That's it. You only eat. You eat and you eat and you eat, because that is the one thing you can control right now. I've had to make some personal adjustments. My current wardrobe is primarily Costco based. Some of you may be unaware that you can purchase clothing at Costco. Oh, you can. They carry all your favorite fashion labels. Calvin Klein, Hugo Boss, Nabisco, all the best, and it's all piled in giant disheveled heaps on folding tables, scavengers picking through it like seagulls feasting on the carcass of a bloated whale. It is, how you say, très chic. Now, I should be clear, I don't have to be buying my clothes at Costco, okay? 2020 has not been a financial windfall, but I'm doing fine. But these are fat clothes we're talking about, okay? I have lost and gained and lost weight my entire adult life. And if there's one thing I have learned, is you do not spend good money on fat clothing, especially not in 2020 when 90% of the people I interact with are seeing me in a Zoom thumbnail. So, and luckily, thanks to social distancing, none of you will ever get close enough to notice that this shirt is 90% asbestos. Chafes a bit, not going to lie. As I was mentioning to David, I am a little terrified of technology and where it's taking us, because I'm just flat out addicted myself. I knew I had crossed the Rubicon. I remember last year I went to grab lunch at a Panera Bread, because I can afford that. I don't want to brag that I can eat a Panera Bread, but I can. I consider Panera fine dining in the sense that it's fine. It's fine dining. But I went to Panera, and I lived right down the street, and I was in such a hurry, I didn't even take my phone with me. So I'm just going to grab lunch, and then I didn't even take my phone. And then I guess I had just missed like a giant lunch rush, because right after I finished paying for my lunch, I noticed there were 30 people at the end of the counter waiting for their orders. And again, I did not have my phone. Do you understand what this means? That means for almost a half of an hour, I was forced to just stand there looking at people like a psychopath. How did we do it? I have no memory of how to be alone in public without that little black rectangle to stare at. Like, I tried to not look insane. I don't think it worked. Like, imagine you're a Panera and you're eating your lunch and you glance up from your phone and you just see this guy. I could tell I was bumming people out, so eventually I just started staring at my hand, just sort of scrolling my palm, just kind of a when in Rome type scenario. I'm still on 20th century technology. That's where I feel more comfortable. My wife and I have actually a pretty amazing apartment by New York City standards because we have a dishwasher. Yeah. See, a lot of you watching, you're probably not impressed. I'm sure wherever you are right now, appliances rain down from the sky. But in New York City, a dishwasher is an exotic luxury, okay? People don't even believe me. Whenever I go to visit a friend of mine who lives out in the suburbs and I see all the amenities his house has that he just takes for granted, it's as if I'm a medieval time traveler visiting the crazy future world. I'm like, friend, where is the benevolent spirit blowing cool air through vents in the wall? Is that the breath of an angel? And what do you have behind this door? Your own personal clothes laundering apparatus. This washing machine of yours, how many quarters does it require? No quarters? Wait, you have a staircase on the inside of your home? It is the mark of the beast. I'm trying to just get along like everybody is right now. I feel like I have turned a corner. I felt like I had a few months where things are bringing me down, social distancing, the quarantine. But I made a decision a few months ago that has helped me out a lot. I have decided that I am happy. I've decided. Now, I want to be clear about this. I am not happy. Not at all. But I have decided that I am. And it's kind of working a little bit. Just fake it. Just fake it till you make it. I mean, we fake so many things on a day-to-day basis. Why can't I fake that I'm happy? What, you don't think you pretend? Do the words "just saw your text" mean anything to you? Exactly. So why can't I BS about being happy? I already make up things 100 times a day. Whenever anyone talks about Bitcoin, I pretend I know what they're talking about. As far as I can tell, the word Bitcoin is just like a magical spell that you can say that makes women leave the room. Every 4 years, I pretend that I know what a comptroller does. I go in the voting booth every 4 years, and I look at the two names. I'm like, oh, yes, this guy definitely comptrolls better than that guy. I have no idea. When you show me pictures of your newborn children, I pretend that I find them cute. I mean, I'm not saying I find them ugly. I mean, they're babies. Babies are cute, but they're not like individually cute. They're all just kind of baby cute. My wife and I don't have any children that we know of. That makes no sense. But so I don't really have that feeling when it comes to babies, but I understand that it is important to you as a new parent, so I do the work. I'm like, oh, look at him with the ears and eyeballs. This kid definitely has a nose. I don't know. Sometimes I can have fun with it. Like, oh, look at her. She is adorable. Is it just me, or does she look a little bit racist? No, you don't see it? No, not at all. Okay, just me. I don't know, man. It's all about staying positive. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the two wolves parable. Do you know what that is? Yeah, it's a Native American folk story. So you know it's going to be wise, right? Because, you know, that's the brand. The idea is that within each and every one of us, there are two wolves. And one wolf represents positivity and love and joy, and the other wolf represents negativity and hatred and fear. And those two wolves are fighting within each and every one of us. Now, which one of those wolves will win the fight? The one that you feed. All right? I told you it was wise. Now, again, I did not make this up. It's like literally a Facebook meme. I think it originated in the Zuckerberg tribe, if I'm not mistaken. But it resonates with me on some level. So I am doing my best to feed the positivity wolf as often as I can. It's a challenge, though, because the problem with feeding the positivity wolf is, as far as dinner companions go, negativity wolf is a lot more fun. First of all, positivity wolf doesn't even want to meet you for dinner. He wants to meet you for breakfast. 7 a.m. egg whites. Want you to go out and seize the day, as if the day has ever done anything to me. The day and I have an agreement. You don't seize me, I won't seize you. Negativity wolf is way more flexible. Negativity wolf will meet up with you on your schedule. He'll eat when you want to eat. Negativity wolf will meet you for one of those late night screw it meals. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when you're driving home at midnight and you've had kind of a crappy evening, and you just see the golden arches in front of you, and you're just like, screw it. I mean, negativity wolf is there in the passenger seat with you, ready to go halvesies on a 20-piece nugget. And the conversation is just better. Positivity wolf wants to talk about how much potential you have, how you can overcome anything, how maybe you don't need another pint glass of Maker's Mark and Diet Mountain Dew. Boring. Negativity wolf, I don't know, he just lays it out plain. He's like, look, here's how I see this going. We'll spend about an hour, hour and a half cataloging your personal failures. Then we'll hate scroll Twitter for a while, take a nap. How's that sound? Oh, negativity wolf, you read my mind. I think it's a product of getting older. For me, I am 47 now, which is a transitional period. Like, I don't consider myself elderly, but I am starting to take notice of pharmaceutical commercials. Like, I'm not buying any of the drugs yet. I'm just sort of familiarizing myself with the names for the future. It's like, okay, Prevagen, you say, P-R-E. It's a lot of dumb names, the pharmaceuticals. Every pharmaceutical name sounds like a word that you would try to get away with in a game of Scrabble. You ever played Scrabble? You know, when you're like 80 points down, so you're just throwing crap against the walls, hoping something will stick. It's like, I don't know, Abilify. No, that's like when a building doesn't have a handicap ramp, so you have to Abilify it. No? You're not going to accept that one? Okay, let's try this one. Lyrica. Those are like the words to a Mexican pop song. You know, cuando, mi amor, something about a corazon. That is collectively known as Lyrica. These are real words, people. Do not question my trulicity. I think they're running out of letter combinations for the drugs. There's one I see advertised all the time called Xeljanz. 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 First of all, that is one hell of a Scrabble rack right there. You got your X, your J, and your Z. Drop that on a triple word score. Game over, my friends. I do not know what Xeljanz does. I just know I will not ever take it, because I do not want to take a drug that sounds like a character from a 50s science fiction movie. Like, greetings, humans. I am Xeljanz, servant to Space Lord Xanax and his bride, Queen Otesla. We have come to your planet to teach your people about moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis. Really rolled that R there. You hear that? Thanks, Tisch School of the Arts. Worth every penny. I guess that means I'll have to embrace wellness instead. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term wellness. It is a medical term that means nonsense. I'm talking about natural remedies, your melatonin, echinacea, fish oil. I am skeptical of wellness culture, okay? There has to be a reason when I walk into CVS that the wellness products have a section that is separate from where the actual medicine is kept. Like, it's actually kind of perfect that they call it wellness. Because it's like, hey, does this stuff work? Well, it's a wellness sort of a wordplay thing. CBD oil seems to be the one that everyone is gaga about now. A couple of years ago, I had never even heard of CBD oil. I had to ask a friend of mine, and she was like, oh my God, CBD is so amazing. It has all of the positive health benefits of marijuana, but you don't get high. And I was like, wow, that is amazing. Hey, apropos of nothing, I know of something with all the positive health benefits of CBD oil, but you get high. So clearly this is a tomato situation. I mean, I just don't even know what the sales pitch for CBD is. It's like, all right, you're going to feel compelled to eat an entire Costco-sized bag of Doritos, but wait for it, get this, you're stuck with the same terrible thoughts. No, thank you. Listen, I'm not trying to glorify any sort of drug use, okay? That's not what this is about. It's not what I'm about. But it's just like, I'm not saying it's cool. It's just another thing people use to get through the day in 2020. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I think of it as just another natural substance that people use to ignore the wreckage that is their lives, so that they can focus on house hunters. And I don't think anyone is going to get that from the O'Douls of weed. I've heard people say that you should give CBD oil to pets. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Like if you have an anxious dog, you should give your dog CBD oil. Okay. I just had no idea that kid in my high school who used to blow pot smoke in his dog's face was like a veterinary trailblazer. I thought he was a jackass. Turns out he was ahead of the curve. So well done, Keith. I'm going to do it though. I have two dogs, and they're one of my dogs is super emo. He was a rescue, and seriously, something must have happened to him before we got this dog, because he gets very upset when the vacuum cleaner comes out. He'll hide under the bed. So I'm going to start giving him CBD oil, because the heroin I've been shooting him up with is not working at all. I mean, his songwriting has improved, but that's about it. Seems like a weird way to end the show, doesn't it? Seems like a strange way to dismount. And yet that's what's happening right now. Ladies and gentlemen, you've done exceptional work. Enjoy the rest of the conference. I think this is the end of the conference. Am I right about that, David? This is the end, right?
You are indeed. You are the last thing we're going to hear, and we appreciate it very much. I smiled quite a bit. It's very important these days to get the corners of your mouth to go upward. It makes you happier. You've given us a lot of good, interesting points to think about. And it's great to see you again. Thank you for bringing the laughter.
Pleasure's mine. Thanks for having me.
And in the next 30 seconds, I want to thank Teresa for being such a great producer. I want to thank all of our speakers who prepared and rehearsed and practiced and brought to you their wisdom and their knowledge and their experience so that you can learn how to realize the promise of automation. And that's what we're all trying to do. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate that you joined us today. Have a good afternoon.